My name is Matt Jones. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been out of prison for about 3 years, um, where I committed an armed bank robbery after a life of abuse, addiction, and toxic everything. I think it's important for people to know like where I am right now because I'm not just a guy who robbed a bank and got out of prison. I have a successful business, where I design and build, custom projects for, luxury outdoor entertainment areas, interior stuff, spatial. I design them all, draw them, communicate. We do the GoPro videos, time lapses, and it's really cool. Like our page looks like a rock star, right? So I've done really good with this and started out with basically nothing. Of course, when I got out of prison, nobody wanted to touch me. So, like I said, it's important for people to know this because I I've done something that not a lot of people can say that they've done, which is go to federal prison and get out and beat the odds and get my shit together, right? So it wasn't easy either. So I think it's important to just go back to like the beginning and let people know how I got here because I'm not just some guy who, had a bad day and went and robbed a bank and did the time and got out and had mommy or daddy or uncle, whoever,
Right.
help me out because people have been bailing me out my whole life. And I've been basically a piece of, I've been basically bad in my opinion, my
Mm-hmm.
whole life. So um, I feel like there's this paradox, there is a paradox in my life of like good, bad, evil, wholesome, criminal, non-criminal. So my mom's side of the family, growing up, we lived in this like inner city area, and we went to a private school across town. So everyone in this little neighborhood, I mean, it was a black neighborhood. It had a black school, a black church, a black bar, and we were the only white folks that lived all the way in the back on this farm, right? And the rest of it's like house on house on house, and then there's this big, plantation in the back of this place. So it's right by the Hermitage and in Nashville. So it's kind of the way some of the places are down
Mm-hmm.
there. Um, so it was this dichotomy, of black, white, good, evil. My mom was the church lady of our family and made sure that my dad paid for us to go to private school and um, had to send us somewhere, like to balance it out, I guess.
Right.
So she had her fair share of issues as well. I mean, I lived with my aunt for probably the first 3 years of my life. I don't really remember it, but I know that I lived with her long enough to where I started calling her mom.
Mm-hmm.
She noticed that there was some abusive postpartum abuse type things going on, and when I started like grade school is when I came back home, and it was like super traumatic there. There was always, whether it's helicopters buzzing the house for what reasons I don't know, violence. My dad was an alcoholic. He was constantly like pistol whipping her. Every door in the house had a hole from her face in it, and I was totally desensitized to this stuff. I was, it's normal, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then I'd go to like my grandparents, and they had this, cookie cutter lifestyle. It was suburbia, and everybody around me, had this. Everyone in school was, had this life, this, 80s sitcom, mom, dad, everybody 9 to 5, and our life was the basement was, uh, well, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble here. So it was, I don't know what was going on down there, but it wasn't something that I was supposed to know about or
Right.
see, right? So, and then, I got to hand it to my mom. She tried to keep me away from that type of stuff. That's what the Christian school was for. My dad's side of the family, they were all a farm family, and good people all the way out for the most part. So at, that was the norm till I was about 10 years old, and maybe 12. My dad bought a place up in the country, a couple counties away from the city, and the roles flip flopped. Like dad stopped drinking, mom um, started smoking weed and hanging out with people who drank. There was some type of criminal, there was some type of betrayal there between my mom and my dad, whether it had something to do with the DEA or the task force or whatever. And they got a divorce like within a year of moving up to this place. So I went from this place where I was going to a private school and, had some type of, it changed public school to private school. Mom went from being church lady to, party animal. Dad went from pistol whipping, wife beating alcoholic to baptized, going to build a horse farm and do right by your mom, boys, type of guy. Right about that point is like where all hell broke loose for me. I went from being this kid who never had been in trouble to like, I can remember like the first time I ever like got in trouble. I was like ninth grade or something like that. I had snuck out. I was around 14 years old, and dad didn't live there, but he happened to be there that night for some reason. And I came back in and, I had been smoking cigarettes and smoking weed. I think I, popped my cocaine cherry and, pills, lost my virginity, had hickeys all over me, like hair stuck to the side of my face. It was a disaster. And I'm like halfway crawling in the window and he flips the light on. So like they like beat me within an inch of my life and send me to school. It's like 4:00 in the morning when I'm coming in. And like a couple weeks later, I end up vandalizing a daycare, having a fire extinguisher fight, and vandalizing some buildings in town. One of which is like a school teacher, like mentor, father figure, who's basically this constant in my life. He comes into the picture at this time. I didn't know who he is, but it's funny looking back because I vandalized his building and we got in trouble for it. And, he advocated for me all the way through high school and ended up writing me letters while I was in prison and sending me money, sending me art supplies, and entered me into this mural contest where like 2 buildings down from the building I vandalized as a 14-year-old, I got the opportunity to put a mural on and get paid for it. It was really cool. So, anyhow, I'm like dealing with criminal stuff, drugs, activity, basically running wild. At that point, my dad had petitioned for me to come, live with him. Like, you're not living here anymore. Mom's like letting you, run the coop. It's, there's no supervision. So I went to stay with him and I hated it. I hated my life. I hated, everything about that situation. I could remember like even like thinking about suicide and like literally having a gun and just, I was taken away from my friends. I was taken away from the party. So when I'd go see mom, it would be like, the minute I'd get away, it'd be like, hey, where's the cigarettes? Where's the beer? Where's the weed? Where's whatever? Where's my friends? And then it'd be back to dad's and it would be this, strict, very coarse situation. There'd be these trips that he would take, out of state or whatever, and leave me some money and, say go do these chores. And it would every other night it would be me like, hey dad, I'm tired of the meat and potatoes, let's order a pizza or something, right? And he would he'd be like, I don't have any money. And I'd be like, okay, that's cool. So I'd get a can of whatever out of this, I'd make dinner just about every night. And then the next morning he would drive me to school and he'd pull out this big gangster knot of cash and be like, here's your lunch money. And I'm like, I thought you said you didn't have the money. So my mom's always talking about this big giant stack of money that's buried somewhere in a hole. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you're crazy, right? She was kind of crazy, but anyways, when I see this, I'm like, so I tested it. again, hey, Dad, let's get a pizza. Same situation. And, I watch it happen. And this morning, I'm ready. I'm watching everywhere he went. It's like, okay, we had the horses. He went out here. He did this. So when Saturday came and he took the trip out of town, I peeled up carpets and checked baseboards and ceiling vents and everywhere. It wasn't in the house. So I went outside in the shed and I stood there for like, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds and looked around. I was like, it's got to be somewhere in here, like close. So I see these like shovels leaned up in the corner over there, like an angle, and there was some like buckets around. I peeled this blanket over and there's like 3 buckets in there. And I get these things out and pop the tops off of them. And there's like these huge stacks. Like this wasn't a reality to me. I would always like, yeah, okay, he does what? Okay, whatever. I got stuff to do,
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm looking at, Miami Vice, best episode out here. There's like $25,000 bricks of 20s and $50,000 bricks of 50s. And I'm like a 14-year-old kid going, you know, all of a sudden, of course, he sees me with a new pair of boots or a new pair of pants, like total dipshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not even the worst of it. The worst of it is like, mom is like, she's the first person I called, right? Hey, I found it. So she's like, if you tell me where it is, I'll pay off the house. We'll have a house to live in. We will, always have this place. You don't have to worry about anything. Your dad's going to move far away. So I was like, okay. And I told her about it. And they came and got like $30,000. That's all I would let them have. I wouldn't tell them where it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she just blew it. I was like gone. I mean, I think the night she got it, she just offered some dude like $300 for the jacket he was wearing. Bought a tow truck, bought a burger stand. It was all just up in flames in like maybe 3 months, gone. The house foreclosed like a year later, and that was over. She ended up like moving out to a rental trailer in the country. And so my dad ended up moving, several counties away. Like we're 2 counties east of Nashville. He moved like 3 counties west of Nashville.
Did he find out that your mom, that you let her have some, what happened with that?
So he confronted my mom. He knew that, he put 2 and 2 together. Mm-hmm. And I told him, that I told mom I gave it to her, and he told her to keep the money and not to worry about it, that she deserved it. And that was that. But he didn't talk to me or he wasn't normal with me for like a decade, maybe more.
Yeah.
After that, it was maybe a couple comments were made. Like, I know after we moved down, like he moved down to this place, it's Waverly, Tennessee. He moved down to this place. And even when we got there were Black Hawk helicopters hovering, and, he's like, he's shooting them birds basically, just being like, anyhow, nothing really ever materialized there. I'm pretty sure he retired. So that's great for everybody, I guess. I bounced around from Hartsville to Waverly for my junior and senior year. It was he remarried, and she was extreme psycho, like crazy. I had been in some trouble. My whole teenage years was underage consumption, simple possession, underage consumption, simple possession, disorderly conduct, curfew, bing, 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 one after the other. I ended up with an underage consumption like an hour before I was 21, like just all the way right up. And then started racking up big boy charges after that. But it was funny because I had ended up in some trouble one time, and I called her to come get me, and she told the cops that she was scared of me and that I couldn't come home. And they were like, well, we can't just keep you because she said she was scared of you. So I came home and threw everything I had in a garbage bag and went back up to mom's. Of course, mom was like, I don't want you here. So I moved in with like a mentor guy, and he's like 26 years old, a jack of all trades. He basically does what I'm doing now. There's no project that he would not take. And, we remodeled things. We did like restaurants and bars. And, I'm just a kid learning this stuff. But there's a lot of drug use with this, like heavy drugs, pills, cocaine. And of course, they're smoking weed every day. Weed is like drinking water,
Yeah.
And I lived with him for a good little period of time. And kind of self-emancipated myself. And I think I did good there. I gained some skills and went to school. And, there was a friend of ours who got murdered like 2 doors down over like some weed deal. Like some kids had a wreck and some weed seeds were found in their truck. And they told on the bad guy in town, and the weed came from him, and the guy murdered him right there on like the courthouse steps. And he was in that apartment that I lived with the mentor guy that morning. Like, had given me a car. And anyways, that's a whole nother episode. Most of these stories I could go to pick any one of these little days,
right,
and it would be like, what the, you know what I mean? Anyhow, it's just crazy. So I bounced back and forth, and I ended up graduating high school from Hartsville. Like, I spent the last 4 months of my senior year there. I think I did like, before that, I had this great idea to take one of those, long strands of, the ones that got like 5,000 black cats on them, the firecrackers, like they just go on and on and on for like, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So everybody's smoking in the bathroom back in school when I was there. It was just like a big cloud of smoke coming out at lunchtime, right? So we go in there and put like the cigarette on the fuse to have a timer and lay it in behind there. And like a Captain Football guy comes in there and sees me. He ends up telling on me, but I light this thing, and we're standing waiting forever. And it finally goes off, and just, it's pandemonium in there. Like the whole school cleared out. And I didn't know this at the time, but on the other side of this wall was the teacher's lounge. And they were all in there glued to the TV, because like an hour before that had been the bombing of the Oklahoma City federal building.
Wow.
Timothy McVeigh thing or whatever. And we were on some type of terror alert. And so they nailed me to the cross. You know what I mean? Mr. Oliver, the man who vandalized this building and was my mentor, he advocated for me, but it didn't help. But he was the only person who came to my hearing. And I ended up with like the rest of the year in the hole, which is basically like the hole for school, like jail for school. And so I went back to my dad's, so I didn't have to spend the rest of the year in the hole. So anyhow, I graduate. I'm like just about to turn 18. It's literally like days before my 18th birthday, and I get a house there in town. We're partying, and we end up, everyone in the house goes to jail for like a disturbance call. I think they arrested like 8 people. We're like 2 doors behind the courthouse, and but we leave. Like, me and a few friends leave and ride back roads from Kentucky and back. And on the way back, it's like 8:00 on a Saturday morning, and we go to wake everybody up. It's like the day of the first Ozfest concert, like ever in history, that came through Nashville. So we're all going. Everybody's got tickets. We go to wake everybody up, and we leave. And on the way out that morning, we had like blew the stop sign by a couple feet, and the car drives by us shooting birds. And we ended up in road rage, high speed. It was insane, but it ended with like these 2 huge scars on my neck right here. We get in a big old brawl on the side of the road, and the guy tries to decapitate me. Jeez. It was crazy, right? It was like blood everywhere. I can't see how I didn't die. I could literally see my artery like right inside my neck. And like 2 weeks after that, we're coming back from this biker party. Actually, the biker party was 2 weeks before this happened. So in this 1 month period, right after I get out of high school, like it just, my whole life is like, man, I'm just balls to the wall, out of control. And I have this, they have these like backwoods, you don't know about them unless you get like word of mouth biker, shindig. And there was like 500 bikes up on top of a hill and a bonfire and LSD. And, it was really wonderful, for that time. So we end up getting kicked out of this thing, right? And I was being my usual belligerent punk ass self and, you know, grab my junk and flip them all off. And, now we've got an angry mob chasing us. And they chased us all the way out there. A couple people got like seriously beat up. Like my mom and a friend, like another one of the sisters of one of our friends, just come out of nowhere. We're running for our lives down this county road, and I see a Roman candle shoot past, and I'm wigging balls, and I'm just like. I stop in the middle of this pandemonium to admire the fireworks, and it's them. Like I'm like, you got to rescue us, and we end up jumping in the back of this truck and getting chased back like 30 miles.
Jeez.
At the end of this trip, there's this dude that my mom had been dating, one of our friends. So there was like 4 or 5 of my friends as a teenager that my mom had dated. Like just, I'm 17, 18, they're 17, 18. It's like every single one of them. It's like this. I'm like, hey, where's, let's just say for shits and giggles, where's Tommy? Where's Jimmy? Where's Mike? All of us would be hanging out, but one guy and my mom is there and everybody else is kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen him all day. And I'd be like, yeah, me neither. So I kind of caught on after like, anyhow, this one guy got a steel plate in his head, and he's the guy that, fights or pisses his pants after so many beers. And he's like, we've all taken acid that night. And he has this look in his eyes. We come back, and my brother, to wind it down, my brother ends up shooting this guy like 9 times, like point blank. He had beaten, the hell out of my mom. And in order to get him to stop, he had shot him like 9 times. I picked him up and put him in the back of this truck that we rode all the way back home. And it was full of bleach because my mom was a painter. He had like 9 bullet holes in him. None of them hit any organs, all extremities. He ended up apologizing like 2 weeks later. 2 weeks after that is when I got my neck cut. And then 2 weeks after that, one of the friends in our big friend group committed suicide, all within like the month of my graduation, which I did by the skin of my teeth somehow. I had no idea how I graduated. I missed like 68 days my senior year.
Jeez. But you did it.
I did, right? I did, right? So during this time, I've got all these skills I'm working. I'm building, some type of a skill set even from a younger age. I always helped my uncle, roof houses and, do framing work. And I always worked in these, these farming excursions that my family had. So there's always this motor skill, working man type stuff going on that I was picking up on. And even then I always felt like I was doing better than anyone else in my class. Of course, I know that they were all probably going to college, and I'm out here, yeah, I'm making $20 an hour, So I might have been doing better for a second, but they passed me up down the road. And so my adult life was like me trying to have this family that I wanted. I can remember being 9 years old and, basically my objective to have a family, to build what was fucked up in my life. I hated it. I loved staying with my aunt. I loved going over to my grandparents. I loved being over where there was, a unit, a family.
Stability,
yeah, like normal shit. It was embarrassing, to have my mom be jealous of me or yelling, or it was just, it was fucked up, man.
Yeah.
And I wanted that. So I was going to build that in spite. I was spiteful about it. And I wanted that, and I got the job and got the place. I found the girl. That's where I met my 2 sons' mother, Jamie. She was a sweetheart, like country girl, traditional, had all the right values, and was humble, And we was like your typical, of course she was 16 and pregnant, but I was 18 years old, got a place, basically hijacked rides. I found a place that was on the route with some guys on a crew that I knew were going, and I started it. And I think I had that place for maybe 6 months before we had to move in with her mom, or there was some issue with work or lost a job. She had my first son, Matthew, in this little 1-bedroom apartment that we had. Her mother gave us a car, a Cutlass. It was a nice little car. And I was driving it to work. drinking and driving every day, framing. And we had that for maybe a month, and I took it out after work one day and, run the wheels off of it, tore up the transmission in it, and had to basically broke down. When we went back to get it, all the windows were busted out, the tires were slashed. It was somebody had vandalized it on their way to a Leonard Skinner concert or something. It's the best I could put together. So Matthew, I'm sorry, my bad.
You're okay.
I'm gonna sit on him, okay? So one of Mom's boyfriend hooks me up with a car, like a little Ford Escort, like within a couple of days. I'm like, wow, you saved my life, because I got a good job, I got the baby, Jamie's there, she just had him. And it was terrible too. I remember, like, I was so drunk the night that she was in labor that, like, she was trying to wake me up, and she walked down to the payphone booth, like 3 blocks away, like from where we was. It was like a quarter of a mile to call somebody to come and get her. Like, I was a piece of shit, like, for real. I was like a bad dad and a bad boyfriend, and like, but I meant well. I was really trying to do the right thing for real, but I wasn't. I took the car the Savior car to go and apply for. We went down to like some commercial job. They were building a Wendy's or something. Me and a couple buddies. We got an 18 pack on the way there. I dropped a joint in the floorboard and I was getting it. And when I raised back up, we flipped the car 3 times and caught it on fire, rolled it, crushed one of my friend's arm. Like, he had like 13 screws in it, and the car just in flames, done before the sun went down on the same day that I got it. Yeah. Imagine how, then of course I had to come back with that news. This place was like a real shithole of an apartment. Like, there was cockroaches in there everywhere. They were brand new too when we moved in. And
you were still 18 at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
19, maybe.
Okay.
19. I'll give it a 19, because we had moved to another place in Mount Juliet, and I remember that when I turned 21 was the first decent car that we ever had. Like, I don't remember what year it was. I think it was like a 94, maybe, yeah, like a 94 Ford Probe or something like that. And it was clean, it was nice, it drove good, it was a stick shift, and I took it out. 21st birthday, shit-faced, got a DUI. That's my second DUI. I got my first one back when I was 18. I forgot to mention that one, but this was DUI.
Just add it to the list.
It's in there.
Yeah.
So this is number 2 at 21. First one was at 18, and Jamie's aunt bails me out. My aunt bailed me out of my first one, the one that took care of me my younger years. And this is when I started selling weed, like, really, on a higher level. I'm getting like sheets of acid and quarter pounds and pounds of weed and reselling them to everyone that I'm working with. I'm actually starting to do good with it. We moved from there. The Ford Probe, I think, died on us, and I ended up with something else. I think we were rideless. I got another house on a main drag with a boss. We rented from the boss. We lived in an old store on the highway, place was really awesome. It was like a nice party pad for a while. Isaac is born. This is my second son. And we moved to one of the places where I think that we lasted the longest. I am 22-ish at this point. Matthew is around 4 or 5. Isaac is just being born. And Jamie has been working solid at like Cracker Barrel as a server for 2 or 3 years. And I have an indoor gardening operation that goes bad very, almost immediately. It was going good for a minute, but I ended up with my first felony at that point. I was trafficking 10 to 70 pounds of marijuana is what the charge was. And I got an attorney. Brody Kane was my criminal defense attorney. My aunt and my dad chipped in and paid him. And, I ended up going to court and getting a suspended sentence, which means probation, and you've got to go report and take drug tests. And I think like my first drug test, I just never went because I was dirty. And so they violated me and I absconded. Absconded for like I know it was at least 3 years, 3 or 4 years. We had already had my first business at this time, and I was building these portable storage buildings for Home Depot. And I was doing really good. Like, I can remember calling someone when I got my first like 4-figure check for a week's worth of work. I was really proud of it. 22 years old, working for myself. I had a new truck at this time. Jamie went and got this truck in her name based on my on the money that I was making, and it was, I think it was 2001 right at this time. It was like a 99 truck, so it was nice to have at the time, and we end up moving further out to the country. I'm taking like back roads and going back and forth, driving by the police station. I get pulled over. I give him my brother's name. I forgot my wallet. I had a whole system. I keep my ID underneath my truck seat, and I got pulled over. I had a list of little, skirt moves that I'd give them and aliases, and it worked then. Now they can just,
Right.
Google your ass or something. So I ended up getting caught, of course. I got pulled over one evening, had the boys in the truck with me. Isaac's old, 3 or 4 years old at this point, and, old enough to be like, talk. Like, man, why are the police taking you? So we had just come from the grocery store, so I had to call somebody to come get all these groceries out of the back of the truck and come get the boys. And I went to jail, and they basically said, wow, you've been, running from this for quite a while. So it was basically they were going to either reinstate my probation or put my sentence into effect, which is a 3-year sentence, prison sentence, felony with the state. And so my dad and my aunt, again, pitched in, got the same attorney to come and represent me. And it's up to the judge. The attorney can only represent you so much on a violation. They can come in and say, hey, he's got these support systems, he's done this is what he's done in this amount of time, this is where he's at, and it looks good to have that stuff. So he ended up reinstating me. I was in jail for 45 days, the first time I ever really went to jail, in my opinion. Right. I had DUIs, like an overnight, or I think my second DUI I was there for like 4 days. And this time I was there for 45 days. And when I was in there, it only took it seemed like 4 or 5 days for me to get clean and sober and have all these great ideas and tell all my buddies in there that I was going to give them a job when they get out and start a business. So, and I did. And when I got out, I did start that business. And I also, my third report date, the third month I was supposed to go in and take a drug test, I absconded again. Right? Just stopped going. So I had obviously a warrant on me then. I ended up violating on that. Me and Jamie went down this road, ended up with drugs, cocaine, just pills, painkillers, and just ran it into the ground. We separated. I went back and, started dating like a high school sweetheart from way back. And I ended up ODing. I think I was maybe around 25, 26 years old at this time, maybe a little older. And me and Jamie just kind of limped on back and forth. And she got like a place at an assisted living. And I just kind of, I kept trying to rebuild these places. I mean, at this point we'd had, 5 places to live. I'd lost it. We had started over again, car, truck. Even when I got out of jail, the first time I absconded and got violated and reinstated, it was on me. I got the place, I got the car, I got me a truck, I started a business, I had the life going, and then it just crashes and burns. Yeah. Like, keep going just like this the whole way out, up and down, up and down. And it's just crazy to me, because I've started over so many times. I've been through this. It seems like it really is. I really do feel like I'm crazy, because I keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over, and expecting a different result, right? And
I think it's hard though too when you don't have that foundation or stability as a child. So it's like you always had the work ethic. Like that was always there. But then as soon as it would get good, it's like back down.
Well, you don't know how to maintain it.
Exactly.
And these are the conversations that I'm having now with people who are talking to me is, everybody's got a good start.
Yeah.
But do you know how to hold on to it?
Right.
You know, what's crazy is I was just in the truck with my son the other day and he was like, I want to do this. He had tears in his eyes. You know, it was a really bad situation while we were even together in the first place. It was sad. And I was like, well, Isaac, unfortunately, you haven't had the stability or the guidance or the supervision that you needed in your life. And I said that to him as his dad.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt me to say that. You know,
Yeah.
I cried too. It was terrible. He's such a beautiful kid, you know, really smart. He's really beautiful. And they've had such a bad deal, a rough hand, you know. So me and Jamie, we end with basically a drug bender.
Mm-hmm.
I decide I'm going to go move in with the girl that I'm with. We split up the stuff. She goes to the assisted living place where her mom and her sister live, and I'm bouncing around. I go get another place, get another truck, start another business, and I want the kids. They can come live with me. Jamie's running the streets at this time. She was a virgin when I met her. She was the good, clean, wholesome, all-American girl next door. To me, she was everything, right? She was the mother of both of my kids, very sweet, always cooking and doing some type of family stuff, right? And now she's out, you know, looking for pills, hotel to hotel, trap house to trap house, with and doing whatever with whoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible, right? And so I lose this place and go on a tear myself and end up almost, you know, going to prison for life. And I stopped myself and I got a little country house and got away from town. You know, I got the old truck running that my aunt and them gave me to help me start that business, and I got her a little car, got it from my drug dealer. In fact, you know, give him $600 for a little Kia. And so I was like, Jamie, I got this place, you know, it's out here, you know, y'all can come out, you and the kids can come, you know, it's here. You don't have to live like this.
Yeah.
So she asked to come out there and hang out, but didn't want me there, right? And I was like, pfft. But I was like, okay, if y'all are safe and you're here, I'll leave. I had someone drop me off at a gas station. I think I was there for like 30 minutes, and I ended up running like 9 miles back to this place and ended up there. There she is, passed out, half naked. There's like crack pipes. There's some jerk laying over the top of her, and Isaac laying in the bed beside her. And I snap. I end up, you know, kicking them both out in a very, very violent way. And for the next few days, man, I'm out there with like photographs in the floor, and my aunt came, you know, I cut my wrists. My aunt came by, and I'm got blood just running down my arms like this, and I'm trying to hang curtains in this house. Like I just all the way lost it, you know. And so we had like this intervention moment then, and I was, you know, walked away. I got rid of everything. I called a friend in Nashville. I went to go stay with him and got my act together, you know, at least got away, try to clean up and accept that it was done with. So I talked to a friend of mine coming up. I worked for a company. I knew that installing doors in one of the high rises downtown. And I was like, they're in a bidding war with this other building downtown, the Adelicia. I think Taylor Swift has a penthouse in there. And we end up, I said, look, we can get this contract. All we need is like $1,500 to go get workers' comp, general liability, and a business license. And we can get that money if we go over here and do this deck surgery. But you have to quit your job and I have to quit my job, and we have to go all in and do it. We can do this in like a week. And we did it. We went and did the deck surgery. We made like $3,800. We got the paperwork and the credentials, and I made it all up on a little hotel office deal, you know, official letterhead, and we made our bid on it, and we got it, and we got all these doors, and it's like a $500,000 contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, now we just need to figure out how to do it.
Right.
You know, I'm rocking a flip phone from, you know, prepaid from Dollar General. You know, that's all I have. I don't have a car. So I've got literally cases of ramen noodles and water in this apartment, in this high rise, you know, and 30 days out on pay. So we had to really tough it out, and we did. I got guys that come in that had their own tools. You know, we're setting these doors 30 a day at like $80 a pop. So it was, we were cranking them, and we made it. We made it to the top from like floor 6 to 13 of this place, and got our first check. I paid everybody back. I think it was 30 something $1,000 check.
Wow.
I paid everybody back. Like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Boom, boom, boom. Of course, I've been just toughing it out, going days without showers in the middle of July, just coming in and just killing it. And, I'm still on the run at this point from not reporting. And I'm like, I'm getting it all back. I'm building a company. It's going to run on its own while I'm in jail. And when I get out, I'm going to have all this money and it's going to be perfect, right? And I'm going to get my sons back. That's the main thing. And so I called a friend of mine and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna celebrate a little bit. So I went back to somewhere close to back in my neck of the woods. I went to like J.C. Penney's and like just literally did the Jack Reacher, change in the trash can, threw everything in the trash can, put all brand new on, got a brand new Verizon phone, a watch, you name it. I was good to go. So I sat there and had beers at Logan's until this chick come and got me, and she drove me right into the police. She literally had them waiting for me for $50. She turned me in. And they put my sentence into effect that time. So it was over. I missed the contract, missed the money, like ruined everything. And I did I think I did 8 or 9 months in there before I paroled out. And I terrorized it. I was just like, I was young, so I terrorized the jail. We were like the top 2 tier first people moved into, I did most of my time in the hole, most of the time in there, like being a complete jackass to the police. Even now when I went to go, speak at court, since I've been out, I advocate for recovery and reentry. And, I went to go speak at the drug court to some of the people in there, and there's 2 officers in there who are probation officers now. And they're like, Matt, remember me? Remember you used to throw stuff out the door at me? It's Brown. I'm Officer Brown. So it was cool, right?
Yeah.
But I get out of there. My aunts on my dad's side have a place, one of their rental properties or a house that's been in the family for a while, right in the middle of Mount Juliet. I get this place. I'm by myself. Jamie is full-fledged with another guy. They're living together. The kids are there. They're doing drugs together. They do them like out in the open, celebrating them like in front of the kids, at least from, I'm not trying to justify anything that I did, but I was always a closet addiction for me. It wasn't anything that I ever celebrated or wanted to do. It was more like punishment for me, except for weed. It was more like relaxation. But I hated the way that they were raising the kids, encouraged them to be, bad guys and to just, I don't know. I just feel like they needed more structure and guidance, supervision. Anyhow, it was my mission to build a wholesome life that was bulletproof, that they couldn't, they would end up dropping the kids off on my doorstep. That was with what I was planning. And some things went on there with my cousin had to move in, and he was doing some stuff that I felt like was threatening my freedom. So I left, and I had a girlfriend for a few months. It didn't pan out. And that's when I met my second wife, and I married her. Her parents, they had like this commercial vehicle leasing and sales company. I worked for them for a while because I did a little backyard project for them. He talked me into getting a job. I met her. We married up and were together for like 5 years. After we were together for just a few months, my sons came to live with me. I had her kids, my kids, and we all made it happen for about a year or so. Got them great schools, great structured environment, picking them up. That's what we were all about, picking them up, dropping them off, taking them home, me working. And then the economy crunch, 2010, just the bottom fell out of the whole, construction trade industry.
Yeah.
There wasn't a job to be had. Trust me, I've had like every job. Like I've worked for the best. I've drove the best trucks and the best shirts. And, during this story that I'm telling here, I've had great opportunities. I've built army bases and federal courthouses and some of the coolest projects that you could ever imagine, right? And I've done most of it by myself. It's all been about me. Like I'll work for somebody for a minute, but the minute some jerk tries to tell me how to hold a drill or a hammer, I'm like, man, I've really got to start working for myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard.
Right.
So especially when you feel like you know what you're doing, that you can do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So the bottom falls out, and I'm, result back to what I know there's always a fallback for me is selling drugs. And at this point, I have people, I've been to jail a pretty good little bit. So I have some resources that I can reach out to there, and, I can, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, hundreds pounds of weed. I can remember one time I went and picked up 75 pounds of weed somewhere in Kentucky, and I got back to the place and I realized that the tags of the truck had fallen off in Kentucky. We drove all the way back with no tags on the truck and like 70 plus pounds of weed in the back of the truck.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny now, it would have been funny then, but
Right.
it was like that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
guns, this, that, danger. And I've got the kids, and somebody wore a wire. I got a charge out of that. It was a felony, 1 count, 1 sale, 1 pound. All that I touched. I was like, all right, it's over. I had an indoor gardening operation then, and I completely like dismantled every bit of like a secret wall in the house, and cloning chambers and fish tanks and the whole nine. It was great. And so our marriage ended up, I did my year. I ended up I violate again. I'm on the run. Remember, I made parole from that same charge from when I was 21. I made that parole, and I violated somewhere about the time where I left the aunt's house and met the girlfriend before I met the new wife.
Right.
I had already violated. I told her a few months in, and she's like, well, cross that bridge when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And we did, and I crossed it, and I was in jail for about 13 months. She wrote it out. She took the kids to school. She wrote me a letter every day, visited me every day, and was a straight rider, did it. Then I got out, and we did great for a couple of years. And then it just all crashed and burned. She had an affair. I ended up on drugs, and I lost it all again. We left. We had the move. It didn't pan out for like 6 months. We had this place that we never really moved into, never really moved out of. I know she was still seeing this guy, driving back and forth to see him. And I just, drowned my sorrows. Of course, the kids became, backseat now. And it just like all just fell right through my fingers, know. And it's crazy really looking back at it, it's just crazy going back, and seeing how many times I've literally like did this, like started over. And each time it's like, I'm doing it all, they didn't get a car and go in, we weren't partners doing this. I'm like, hey, got the house, got the car, got me a truck, got the business going. All I need is you.
Yeah.
Come, let's do this. I like almost feel like an idiot, like obsessive about something. You know what I mean? So anyways, I go on this tear, right? I say, fuck it. And I end up in jail. I'm driving on suspended charges and just all these little misdemeanors racking up on me all the time. Theft charges, this and that. And I do some more time, county jail, and I'd get out. While I'm in county jail this time, I developed a plan. See, each time I went and got locked up, I've had a plan, right? I get out, I'm going to do this. And this time my plan is to like, I'm only doing creative stuff when I get out. I'm not going to go work for anybody. I'm doing murals. When at Christmas time comes around, I'm painting windows. When Halloween comes around, I'm like carving pumpkins. When in the meantime, I'm going to go to a pill mill. I'm going to get like some good dope, and I'm going to do some, and I'm going to sell some, and this is going to be the life. And I'm going to find somebody that likes to do that shit with me. My kids are old enough. I'm cool with this.
Yeah.
Right? So I like relent to the life. And to me, that's like, it feels like I'm losing my religion. You know what I mean? That's the way it feels.
Yeah.
It's like that's not me. That's not what I was made for or supposed to do at all. I'm supposed to be like, like a family was my identity. It's like, do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So it's like, who am I? Now I figured out who I was. I was like, I had this girlfriend, she was a full-blown alcoholic when I met her. So she was kind of like the person that I kind of nursed back to health, at least to me. I felt like I had something to take care of.
Yeah.
You know, my oldest son had lived with his friend when I got locked up, and he was in a good situation. And I even felt like, you know what, against my wants and my missing him and loving him so much, he's in a good situation, and I'm not going to drag him over here into my mess.
Right.
That was hard. Isaac, same thing. He was living with his nanny. Jamie is still $150, buck wild, going crazy out there, like still just balls to the walls. Doesn't even look the same anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Looks like a different person.
Did she have a relationship with your sons at this point or no?
Yeah, she was very sweet. She's always around them, but she was out there.
Okay.
She was in the streets most of the time.
Yeah, still doing her
I'm
own
not saying
thing.
she's in the streets. You know, she was still just not really. She wasn't trying to fight her addiction.
Yeah.
You know, I never really had a thing for meth or any kind of amphetamines and stuff like that. I don't think I'm better than anybody else, but it just seems like that stuff really tears people up worse than anything, you know? And that and the painkillers. And I mean, I would take painkillers. Sometimes even when I'd run out, I'd call her and ask her if she knew where to get some,
Yeah.
you know? And we were cool. We were friends. Once we stopped fighting over the kids, you know, after my marriage, you know, fell apart, we all kind of just tried to help each other out. Sometimes we'd even hang out and we'd all get together and hang out.
Right.
When I was married, some of my best Christmases that I had, we called it the X's, and my wife's ex and her kids, so they didn't have to fight over the kids. And then Jamie and her boyfriend and his kids would come over, and it was like everybody's exes and everybody's exes' kids like had Thanksgiving, and it was great. Nobody thought about where we were going. We did it like 2 years in a row. Anyhow, I'm with Jessica. Everything is just kind of, you know, it's warm and fuzzy, you know, it is what it is. Matthew asked to come back and live with me. I found this little single wide trailer out in the country, and I built a porch around it and fixed up the inside, and it was really cool. Like you pull up to this thing and it looked like a hunk of junk, but when you walked in, it was like, wow, this is
pretty nice.
It was cozy.
Yeah.
It was cool. I had like built-in speakers, and it was really, really great. And so he came in, we fixed him up a room, and I like covered up the whole wall with like circuit boards and LED lights. And even Isaac was talking about coming to live with me, you know, when he graduated. And during this time, this is 2014-ish, I had done the last bid, got out, met Jess, and we, you know, hung out. I'm doing the pill mill thing every month. I'm doing my plan, you know. I made the signs, I did the artwork, you know, was just getting through it day to day. I had started working for my uncle as a superintendent for this outfit that had been around forever. I should have been doing this from day one. He'd been this guy for like 30 years as a subcontractor. And, you know, I got in with them, and, you know, I jacked that job off. Had a truck that would barely run. And Jessica gets pregnant. She's pregnant with, we go to the ultrasounds. We find out it's a girl. And I'm like, switch flips, right? I've got to get it together. I'm having a baby girl. This is a second chance for me. I can have a family now, right? Mm-hmm. And so I build a business profile. I put it all together, like, you know, broken molds. I like took some pictures and photoshopped some logos and made a logo. First thing I did is make a logo, and then photoshopped it to a website and some vans. And, you know, I'm like in business. I start scouring Craigslist looking for a first job. I got a couple of jobs, and I got a project, did a few projects, a couple of decks. I think I did a screened-in porch for someone. And, you know, I'm waiting for the big project so that I can make enough money to actually get the stuff that I need to actually, I didn't have any tools. I didn't have any equipment. I definitely didn't have the credentials. So I finally land a decent sized, you know, project, end up with like a substantial deposit out of it. And I get legit. I get the insurance policies and the permits and the equipment, and put tires on the truck. And, you know, she's like 4 months from having the baby. We're getting it together. She doesn't even know what I can do. She doesn't even know this side of me. All she knows is this. I don't know how he does it. He comes up with money and dope every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I would get out there and work, I could figure it out. I could go hustle up $300 or $400, like legitimately as a working, intelligent human being, you know, whereas somebody else might have to go do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, you know, I was looking forward to being this. And so the people find out my background, right? And they renege on this project. I don't have their money. You know, I think it was like 20 plus grand that they gave me. And I already spent like 13,000. I think I ended up giving them around $13,000 and I was still like $8,000 short. They're big numbers to me. You know, I'm late on rent. I'm fired from my job. The pill mill doctor like already kicked me out of the pill mill because I tested positive for weed. They charge you like $400 for a visit too, right? And so when they kick you out, they only only write you half of your scripts. So the $500 that I'm paying for $4,000 worth of pills, I'm only getting half of it. So I'm already, you know, on tilt, you know, and I come back to, I was like, at least I can sell these pills, right? And I get robbed for them by some kids at a gas station, like literally almost killed me. I'm like trying to pull myself into a truck and out here 30 something years old, hanging out of a truck, the tire ran over me. I'm literally looking at myself, like, how do I not just get killed?
Right.
You know, they even stopped. They robbed me and stopped. Their brake lights are on because they're like, oh, we killed him. But, you know, I got up and started, you know, coming at him and they're like, oh, he's good. Let's go. So crazy.
It's like a joke.
Yeah, right. So then I've got all these driving on suspendeds. I got one in Brentwood and they're hollering lawyer or jail, you know. I've got a felony sentence that I've been basically doing on probation that was terminating early because they started it before I got out of jail. They actually put me into effect 6 months before I ever got out of jail, which is great. You know, in a perfect world, it's like, you know, I got a 2-for-1, you know what I mean? I was doing time for this. And I also got probation time when I wasn't on the streets, you know, but that also comes with the restitution fund. It's just like $3,000 that didn't have. And if I didn't have it at the end of this, they would put a warrant out for me. And then all that sentence that I did would be reversed and put into effect the way the system works. So I've got like these major legal and financial, like just...
It's out for you, yeah.
It's going down, right? So I'm like, these people are sending me these emails from their attorney. You're facing a myriad of consequences, and I'm just sitting there like, God damn. And so that's when I decided that it was time for me to rob a bank. I mean, that's when I decided that, you know what, I'm not just gonna sit here. I had a meeting. I literally had me, Jess, Matthew, Isaac wasn't there, but we sat there and had like a little family meeting. I was like, look, I can't sit here and wait for a county cop to come serve a warrant on me and me to go to jail. Yeah, sure, I'll only go to jail for a week or 30 days or whatever, but they'll revoke my bond while I'm in there because this will get put into effect. Then these people will have a warrant out by then, and I'll be fighting this system for 5 to 7 years. I'll have all this stuff racking up on me. So I gotta try to do something. And in the back of my mind, and I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day who's kind of been in this life, and he said that sometimes he knew he would go to jail. Like he knew he would self-sabotage himself because it was like a reset for him, you know? And this is like a real level-headed, mild-mannered guy, right? Mm-hmm. And he said this, and because I was like, somewhere during this process of me planning this bank robbery, I'm like, you know, at least just gonna wipe away all this bullshit, you know, if I go to jail. And it was almost something to look forward to. I'm full-blown pill addict. I'm full-blown opioid addict at this point. I'm even like dabbling with heroin. And that's when I started cutting it with fentanyl too. So, you know, I think I might even like got some one time. It's like really, really tiny, and it like put me down. And so I go to Party City, still a wig, a Jimi Hendrix costume, right? You know, I'm like, I don't need them looking for a white albino looking dude. I need them looking for somebody that doesn't look like me. So
Right.
my disguise is like, I got the eyebrows, I got the mustache, I've got the wig, I got heel inserts for my shoes because I'm like, yeah, they got the height thing. They're gonna be looking for somebody 6'4", not 5'9". Um, I make I steal 2 phones from Walgreens. I had no money, so I had to steal everything. So everything that I needed, I had to figure it out.
Right.
And I'm talking to Jess about this. She's like, "Are you really gonna do it?" And I was like, "I think so." And come the day of, I wasn't even thinking about this. It was Good Friday, so I was like, "Are the banks even open today?" You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to like go up there and check, and which they were. It's not a federal holiday, but I took like a DVD player and busted it up and got the circuit boards out of it, saved the little LED lights and like taped them to the end of a battery, took one of the burner phones and took the faceplate off of it, and then put the numbers back on and made sure it light up so it kind of looked a little like gnarly and Frankenstein-y. Plugged some wires up in there for no reason, like it was connected to this. Had these couple of these metal canisters and like a top of a ceiling fan thing, and I, you know, strapped it with strap metal and put the circuit boards on top and laid the phone on top and assembled this, real, we called it a movie quality prop. It was a very nicely crafted, simulated explosive device. And so then I took it all back apart. So right the day before of, I took it all back apart and dipped each piece in bleach to try to eliminate my trace. I was just trying to think, how would I do this? How would I get away?
Right.
If I was going to do this and get the money and get it, how would I get away? Well, first thing is you don't want any police leaving. Second thing, you don't want them to identify you or your vehicle. And if they do identify your vehicle, make sure your vehicle isn't identifiable later.
Right.
That pretty much sums it up, right? So my plan was to call a diversion, get the police on this side of town, and go in, have them, obviously I used an airbrush to paint my skin a different color. And so I'll go in there, they're 6 foot tall, had some little glasses on, I look like an older black man, and I'm carrying this bomb.
I know, it's not funny, but it is. Like, that's pretty creative.
Look,
kids, don't do this at home.
No, definitely not. I'm not saying this is like, I'm definitely, I didn't hurt anybody. I really hated it for the lady in there too. I wrote her like 4 letters from prison and told her that I never would have hurt her, and it didn't mean anything that I said, because I wrote a letter. I was like, look, I know where you live. I know your kids' names, and if you call the police, I'm going to come see you.
It's traumatizing, yeah.
Yeah, everybody who worked in the bank didn't work there anymore after like 2 months. It was like part of my sentencing. It was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. But, I couldn't move. When I was going in there, like I drove up to this place, I watched all the cops pass by, and I was like, this is the moment. Like, welcome to the moment. I'm here. I'm about to be that guy that did this. And that's what I'm sitting there thinking. Like, it was surreal as just about as surreal as it could be. Anything could be. I was like, I'm really doing this. And like got out of the truck and I took like 3 or 4 steps and I turned around like uncontrollably.
Right.
And I just made myself like take 1 step and take another step and like looking at my feet. I just watched my feet. I watched my hand open the door. I just pretended like I wasn't myself. I promise you, it was like an out of body experience.
Well, the thing is too, is like, you doing that took a whole different step into a different lifestyle, I feel like. Like, yeah, you were always involved in some sort of trouble or not so good news, but it was never that kind of thing. You know what I mean? That was just completely, I feel like, even though it might seem like it wasn't out of character, it was. It wasn't something that you've ever done before.
Right.
So.
Definitely. It was, I never would have done it.
Right.
I made myself do it. Like, I have to do this. And it
probably felt like too you didn't have another option at that point.
To me, somehow, and I've said this to Brittany before, that it would be very, very hard for me not to say that I wouldn't do it exactly the
Mm-hmm.
same again, because it's made so many. I would never have been able to recover the way that I have
Right.
now. I would never have been able to change the way that I have now had I not went through this situation.
Right.
You know, from the moment I decided to walk in there, may have been. Now, I'm not saying go do this or anything, but you know, going to prison for 5 years plus is, you know, it's either going to make you or break you.
Right. I was going to say too, like, not that it's something to encourage or that it's um necessarily to hit rock bottom, but sometimes it takes like stooping that low to come as high as you have come to where you are today.
It's
Because if not, you could have just been repetitive, like on that same track that you were before.
still now.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe dead, hurt
Right.
somebody, hurt, or you know, fuck somebody else's life up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was crazy. Everything that happened. You know, I walk into the bank holding this bomb. I set it on the counter, pass a note. I make it out of there. I ditch my car, drive back through the scene with, you know, after I have, you know, my partner pick me up, and I'm arrested, you know, the next day that or later on that night. I didn't get any money. Like the FBI told me the average take on a teller walk in pass a note bank robbery is $3,500 or $2,500, and I got like 3,565, and half of it was a bunch of like fives, like bait bills, like recorded bills that they keep for bank robbers.
And how did they catch you?
So the burner phone, you know, right? The original plan was to go up like to a neighborhood away from mine and call the diversion call. And so this particular morning, my plan was to go do that and have, you know, my partner go throw away all the, you know, kind of the trash, take the trash off, right? And she was having a bad day that day. So I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. So I'm like full makeup. It's cold. I have to go outside and like rig my starter underneath my truck. You know, I'm feeling really weird because again, I'm full makeup, you know, fixing my starter on the truck. And I did. And as soon as I got out of there, I make the diversion call like 300 yards down from the house. You know, call 911. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, you guys got to get down there. There's blood everywhere. He's got a gun. I got a, you know, and that was that. So I crossed the bridge at the interstate. I break the phone and throw it out the window. And so later on, I realized, like in my paperwork and the motion of discovery and the investigation, I saw that they had originally pinged where that call came from and looked for known felons in that area. Well, my mom's address is the first address that popped up. They went to my mom's place, and that was that. Yeah, man. I know that she told them where it was. She got a hotel. She's the one that put the hotel room I was staying at in her name. And you know, if the FBI busts down your door and makes threats to you, you're probably going to cave.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not really trying to put that one on her, but I probably would have told him to. I don't know. I definitely would have told him it was her, but never mind. So I'm there with her. I knew that she was coming. I had her. They knocked on the door, and she's, you know, pregnant. I was like, look, lay down on your belly, like put your hands behind you because you're gonna slam me down when you come in. And so when she got laid down, I had them open the door, and of course they come in like chicken winged and put, you know what they do. And so he offered me a deal if I told him who this guy in this picture that robbed this bank was, right? It's like, he was like really serious, like in the movies, like Ace Ventura, like, who the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And he was pointing at it was you, right?
it was me.
Yeah, but
it was
dressed
a
up.
picture of me in full makeup, and I was like I couldn't even hold back a smile. I was like,
So at this point, they didn't know that it was you yet.
no, they think that I'm an
Involved.
accomplice.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, look, man, I will tell you who that is. I will straight up like take you to him right now. But you promise me I won't do no more than like 2 years in like a camp, you know, like nice work camp, you know, tennis courts and whatnot. He was like, done. And I was like, all right, it's me. It's like straight up. Here's the makeup. Here's the wig. Here's the thing. It's in the truck. It's over there. And he was like, yeah, you can forget that shit. Like,
Oh, God.
I was like, they recorded it and everything. They were like, yeah, no deal. Like, anyways. I was like, look, they had Jessica in cuffs. They had my mom in cuffs up where she lived. And I said, I'll give you a full confession if you just look. I did everything. No
Mm-hmm.
one helped me. Nobody knew about it. They don't even know what's going on. They just know that I'm in trouble. So they went for that one, and I did. And I spent the night in county jail. And the next morning, a couple of U.S. Marshals came and got me, and they took me to like a booking center, like the federal courthouse downtown. And then from there, I went to a place in Kentucky, which is like a federal holdover where you stay and fight your case and get sentenced and arraignment. And that stuff can take 6 months to 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And mine took like 6 months. It was like the most overwhelming evidence, like clear cut, open and shut, bing, bang, boom, you're going to prison. Like, and everybody was like, man, you went to prison quick. Because that's what everybody wants to do in there because they know they're going.
Right.
This poor, very poor conditions in there. Very, just really, the system's just really bad. You think the feds would like have their stuff together, but I don't know if you ever know anybody who's been in the military or federal prison, but like the food is like, even the packaged food says not for human consumption on it.
Really?
All of it. Yeah, it's like crazy. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how are they feeding this to us every day?
Right.
The meat, the chicken, the potatoes, not for human consumption, not for human consumption. I'm like, I don't get this. You think that it would be more organized. I mean, there's so many inefficiencies. They're like 20 years behind on everything in there. So I get to, I'm about 4 or 5 months into my little county, fighting it in. And Jess is having a hard time. She's had the baby, it's a little girl. And um, I'm, just she had to move in with friends. She lost the place. She doesn't have a car. She dried up, during the pregnancy. She, sobered up and dried up and, became like she was pretty. She got her color back and she was glowing, And of course after she had the baby, she, went back to drinking like every day, waking up and drinking. And um, so I told her, I said, go to like the help center, go to Get On Families First. Even if I owe them $15,000 in 5 years, 7 years when I get out of here, it's worth it. You guys will get a check. You can get on assistance. And, you can say you have the baby's daddy's in federal custody. And she's like, okay, okay. So she went and signed up for it. And they came to the prison and swabbed me, did a paternity test. And, that was that. And like 3 weeks later, I get like some letters in the mail, Quest Diagnostics, you know what I mean, like LabCorp or whatever, and I open it up and it's my paternity test and it's all zeros. Like, I'm like, this means all zeros is like, that means that there's no chance that I cannot be the father, right? So I'm like reading this wrong or something. And it was like, okay, I'm not reading these numbers correctly. What does this mean? I don't know how to read it. I'm thinking I'm reading it wrong because I never knew that she had even slept with anybody else. Not
Right.
even a clue. Of course, I mean, we didn't have a, this wholesome,
Perfect relationship.
beaver
Yeah.
cleaver, situation going on. So there's always going to be that toxic dysfunction type stuff going on. But I never really believed she had cheated on me. She might have hung out somewhere too long or did something inappropriate in my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm probably being paranoid or high or something. And so I maybe get 2 hours of sleep here, 2 hours of sleep there. I put it underneath my pillow, and I had this thing for like 2 weeks. And I'm telling you, I would wake up at in the middle of the night and like think that I read it wrong and like look at it and look at it and look at it. I didn't even call her for like, and finally I called her and I was like, she knew the whole time. It's like she knew that it was his. I was like, why didn't you even go get a paternity test? You were just hoping? And she was like, yeah, I really, really was. And I was like, yeah, I bet you were. Anyway, she like, lives in the dude's backyard in a camper and has since the baby was a couple years old, and that's that. Um,
So did you guys have a relationship at all after that, or that was kind of?
Well, she,
it.
you know, I was hung up on her. That's all that existed or mattered. Of course, I love my sons and I wanted to see them, and I felt so guilty and ashamed because Matthew graduated high school like that. This happened like on Good Friday. Of course, it was March, February, something like that. And he graduated high school that summer, that May, and I missed it.
Hmm.
Um, Isaac started having problems, and but our relationship basically ended the minute I robbed that bank.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I chased her. I tried to call her, but she was off doing something else the minute I disappeared. Me, she was still in my heart for like a year.
Right.
Even after I found out that information, I was like, look, I love you. I love that little girl. That dude's a piece of shit. This can be our little secret. We're going to get through this. That was my stance. And she was like, yeah, 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 okay. But I didn't accept this. But everybody around me, you know, the guys in prison, they're going to shoot you straight. They're going to be like, man, let it go.
Yeah.
Like, you know, do your time, take the lick, is what they say, you know. And I finally make it to prison, and um, maybe 7 months after being in this place, and it was like culture shock. I It's maximum security federal prison, and there's 13 of these. They call them USPs, United States Penitentiaries, and they are shaped like a large square with the housing units on the long, like a rectangle with the housing units on either side of the longer side, and then the program areas on the short side. Like you'll have education, administrative, cafeteria on one end, and then you'll have like a movie room, library, church on the other end, and the yards are in the middle. It'll be like a soccer field, a football field, you know, basketball courts, so on and so forth, handballs, and then a track around it. So there's 13 of them, and they're all very similar to that layout right there. And um, they're gang run. Like you think, oh, well, there's some level of supervision in there. Well, on my intake, you go through the departments, you know, you go through psychology, education, medical, psychological, full rundown, right? Blood test, DNA test, the whole nine, right? They get real personal. And so one guy that goes through is like your gang coach, or, you know, classification is what it is. So he's like, who you spend your time with? And I was like, well, I like to hang out with my girlfriend, you know, most of the time. Sometimes the kids come over on the weekends. And he was like, uh, who are you going to be doing your time with here, man? And I was like, well, I'm just going to stick to myself if it's all the same. And he was like, just look at me like, dipshit. So he was like, he threw his pen on the table and he was like, where are you from? And I was like, well, I'm from a little town named called Lebanon, about 20 minutes east of Nashville. And he writes on his little thing. He says, go see Johnny D in Bravo 6. You're with the Independent White Car of Tennessee. And assigns me to a gang, right? And gives me a shot caller to go report to. See, the way it works in there is if you're if you're being messy, you know, if you're too loud, if you're, you know, pushing the limits too much, let's say you're still, everybody who has a job is expected to use that job to steal or, you know, if you work in the kitchen, then your hustle is probably going to be making and selling grilled cheese sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? On the side, you're going to be the guys, I got sandwiches, you know what I mean? So if you work in mechanics, then your hustle is going to be stealing solder and tape and fire making apparatuses, fixing radios, anything that you can use your job for. If you work in facilities, then your job is going to be moving stuff, which is if guy in, you know, Alpha 2 needs to get something to, you know, Delta 6, then he's going to go through maintenance and drop off that and have something moved from this area to this area, whether it's, you know, drugs, weapons, information, whatever. These USPs that, I mean, this one in particular, I wasn't there a month, and I had seen, I saw one, I don't know if he was murdered or not, but he was stabbed up, red mist in the morning sunlight, like the deuces go off, everybody hits the deck, and I thought these guys were playing. It looked like they were dancing because it was way off in the distance, and there's just one guy in the middle, and it was I can remember it. It was really surreal looking to me. I was still standing up, and some guy yanked me down on the ground because after so many seconds, they'll shoot you. There's like a tower in the middle. There's a tower in the middle, and there's towers on all the corners. And after there's a murder for, I think it was over like a book of stamps. The stamps is the money in the feds, like literal stamps. You can send them out here on the streets and cash them in and get cash for them. And there's like one of the few things where you can turn prison dope money or prison extortion money into real live bank account money out on the streets for your gang, organization, family, or your whatever your whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know none of this stuff. I'm like all the way fresh faced, like wide eyed. It was almost hard to take it serious. The bravado and the macho and the gang stuff, it was almost laughable to me. You know what I mean? I didn't take it serious, but it was very serious looking back, I mean, one of the first things that they do, like the new guy holds all the knives. The new guy holds all the contraband, everything. Like under my bed, a knife shot is like a real street charge in there. A shot is what they call an infraction. There's level 1, level 2, level 3 shots. So like a level 1 would be like murder or rape or something like that. And I don't sound like a real professional on it, but in the beginning, I didn't know anything about none of this stuff. Like when somebody said shot, I'm like, well, what's that? Like a shot in the ass, or what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And so, moving forward, I'm like, okay, I got the white guys pulling me over, like pulling me in, like, hey, come up here and talk to me for a minute. And like, you do understand that we're a community here, right? Like trying to subtly say you belong to and are carried by and represent, a certain, group here. And I'm like, yeah, sure. If you need anything, man, holler at me. I got shit to do. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way I handle it too. And they're like, looking back, I can see them going, yeah, he's got a rude awakening coming.
Right.
So I'm an artist, I'm like, as soon as I get there, I'm like, yeah, I'm a tattoo artist. I've never tattooed, maybe one tattoo in my entire life. And I knew I could do it. I just had to find some people who were kind enough to let me figure it out on them.
Yeah.
And in there's plenty of those, right?
Test subjects. Yep.
Plenty of them. They're like, yeah, whatever, man, we'll figure it out. Like I already got 9 bad tattoos, let's just scribble it out if we make a mistake. Mm-hmm. And so I like tell them, and within the day, I've got motors, ink, needles, like stencils, reference material. And there you have to, have plenty of, you don't have a computer or Google or anything so you've got magazines on magazines on magazines and stencils and even custom art that people have made. You've got this stuff that, any kind of reference material that you can get your hands. So I've got the stacks and stacks of stuff and all this equipment, like everything that I needed. So I start tattooing, and I actually bust out a couple of good ones. I get lucky, and the guy just wants like a couple Uzis on this arm that are blacked out, and these are like a Georgia G, and there's some good starter pieces for me. And I started working on this sleeve piece for a really light-skinned guy from Memphis, and something was wrong with the ink. Like you got to make ink in there a certain way. I didn't know about this. I was paying some guys. I started employing like guys from other units to make ink. You burn ink. You take a candle and burn it underneath some type of hard surface, and it creates a carbon stalactite. And you take this carbon and knock it off on like a magazine page and mix it with this whatever the fake alcohol is, the butyl.
And that's safe to go into the skin?
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, it's sterile.
Safe enough.
Yeah. It's safe enough. It's sterile. So it's carbon.
Okay.
And it's the alcohol. Like you don't want to mix it with water, because if you let's say you mix the carbon up with water, right? And then the water becomes stagnant or mold or stale. And that's what happened here, right? As this guy starts like, this, tattoo looks great. I'm like, man, it's going to be dope. And then 2 days later, he looks like he's got leprosy. You know what I mean? He's and so what happens there is like, we may have a conversation, and I'll be like, look, man, whatever happens, put some Aquaphor on it, keep it covered up, don't scratch it, don't itch it, don't put triple antibiotic on it or anything like that. Just let it do its thing. We have a communication and exchange between us that's very civil. Well, uh, Jimmy Gangbanger, that represents his community, comes in and says, nah, man, that shit ain't gonna fucking fly, man. I'm gonna go have a conversation with Dirty D over here that, manages them, and they're gonna have to pay. So they just create a big stink about it. And then there's a meeting on the yard between these and these, and then they make a decision based on it, right? So I'm tattooing on everybody. The way I see it is I'm funneling money from another race into my race. That seems like I don't see anybody else doing that. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? You're borrowing money to go get high every day. You're not even doing anything. You're just getting high and going playing basketball every day. At least I'm, creating. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah.
And so paperwork, it's a big deal. Within 30 days, you're expected to have your judgment and committal and all of your transcriptions from your court situation. A lot of guys in there are on big conspiracies. In the feds, you can go to jail for hearsay evidence, which somebody could call you right now. Let's say that they're under investigation under the FBI for gang, RICO, drugs, whatever. And they say, hey, I'm coming over to get the stuff to you on your telephone. And you say, yeah, all right, cool. I'll leave it on the porch. And 2 years later, he gets indicted on a RICO case. They'll indict you on the RICO case too and convict you.
Yeah.
There's guys in there doing time for that, just like that, literally. Like, they're rare. I've seen them. And some guys are maybe connected in some very subtle way. They don't need to be in there doing 7 years in prison. Right. You know what I mean? For a phone call, right? Mm-hmm. Now, did they personally facilitate someone's death or anything like that? No, but they're on there. And they'll charge 13, 14, 15, 20 people on that RICO stuff or those conspiracy cases. So they want to see who the rat is. They want to see who the tellers are, and they want to see who the child molesters are, sex offenders. Because those people don't walk those yards. A sex offender or a child molester on those USP yards, there are none. Because what happens is when they touch down and their paperwork's bad, even if their charge has something to do with the internet, they're not walking on those USP yards. They have an immediate SOS on them, which is a smash on sight. Mm-hmm. Like, they're getting stabbed, murdered, anything goes. And what happens is if you get smashed off the yard, whatever it is, you would think that the person who got assaulted or, SOS'd would be the person that was being defended by the administration. But what happens is they go to the gang that smashed him and say, why'd y'all smash this guy? And they're like, oh, he's a rat. Oh, he's a child molester. Or, oh, he's too messy or making too much noise. He's not allowed to come back on the yard anymore. And I'm like, all right. And they'll put a threat assessment on you, the person who is in there that got assaulted or whatever, and say that you're a threat, that you're a safety factor, right? And then they'll just ship you to another place, and you get networked. And this is basically what happened to me. My paperwork came in, and my lawyer wrote a sentence in there that says, I was going to the pill mill. Well, when I got arrested, they said, I was like, told them that I was basically addicted to opioids. I'm like, where are you getting your opioids from? Oh, well, I'll go to a doctor, so-and-so in Clarksville, Tennessee. And that's the sentence that was in my paperwork. Mr. Jones stated that he was addicted to opioids and went to go see Dr. Macaron at such and such in, such and such Tennessee. And I had one of these guys, the Dirty White Boys. It's a gang, big gang, right? Mm-hmm. I know it sounds like lame, but they're violent and they're hateful and they're racist. And I wasn't with the racism. I didn't like it. It seemed kind of immature. Just wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. Imagine the dumbest, redneckest, idioticest guy being your boss. That's what it was like.
Yeah.
Mad over nothing, always jealous, always in the sewing circle, always stirring the pot. That's how it is. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, man, I wish the black guys have such a cooler car. I want to be in theirs. So, and that's another thing. I know you probably keep hearing me say car, but I don't know if anybody else uses those words, but it's the first time I ever heard a gang called a car. Yeah. So they're like, you're with this car or that car. Or this, you may have a small group that's just like you and some Christian brothers or you and some Muslim brothers or you may have like a big one like the Serenios or Bloods or Crips or something like that. Those are all cars, and
Okay.
there's little sub cars inside of those cars, and whoever the shot caller is, he's got the keys to the car, and when guys get into it or different gangs get into it, they're going to crash the car. If you're being too messy, you're going to crash the car, and they will kick you out of the car, aka smash you off the yard.
Got it.
And they have to smash you off the yard, because if they don't smash you off the yard, then SIS doesn't have to write up a transfer order on you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's airplanes and buses and that are going all day, every day, transferring federal convicts from one institution to another, whether new intakes, people going out of the system, people being classified in the system, or people that have been smashed off of a yard, or people who have crashed out themselves, right? And that'll happen a lot too. Is you'll have guys who have, let's say they have a 30-year sentence, and they're like, man, I want to get to the ADX in Colorado, because they have single man cells, they have TVs in their cells, and if I got to do the rest of my life in prison, I want to do it alone. I don't want to do it with these jughead, idiots, and they'll stab up somebody and keep going through the system, go through the SHMU programs, which is like a 3-year lockdown program, 23-in-1, very tough, and they'll do this, and it might take them 3 or 4 to 5 years to do it, and they go through a lot of stuff too. Like the administration will do something that they call, this is a slang term, they call it diesel therapy. They will write up a bogus transfer order, and you'll jump when you're transferred. You don't just go from Kentucky to your destination. You go from Kentucky, then one day you'll go to like 3 different states picking up other convicts and end up either in Oklahoma or Atlanta, which are transfer centers. And you'll be in there anywhere from 3 days to 2 to 3 weeks, depending on if it's a holiday, whatever, until they classify you. And then you're going through the system all over again, and you end up at your final destination. Okay. So when you're in transfer, it lasts about 3 weeks, and then you get to your spot. Well, guys that are trying to manipulate the system like that, and it's obvious, they'll put them, they'll never make it to their final destination. So they'll sit in transfer for a couple of weeks, and they'll write them up again, and they'll end up in transfer again, and then in transfer again. And they'll say, okay, have you had enough? Okay, then you're going to sit right here. And then, after that, you've had enough, because you don't have your stuff. You don't have no relation. You don't even have any communication. Your money's frozen while you're in transit. Okay. Like, it's all like, it's rough. It's a rough way to do time. You're basically starving. You're shackled. Your hands are boxed on an airplane. Like, it was crazy watching these airport exchanges, and, watching these guys in full military tacked out, shotguns and machine guns, and helicopters hovering above, and an airplane parked there, and 200 to 300 convicts funneling out of an airplane, buses parked around in a perimeter, guys coming in, guys coming off. They do it in the ice and the snow, 0 degrees, wherever. And you're standing out there in khaki pants and a white t-shirt, with 90 or 100 or 50 or 30, in a line, nut to butt, single column, waiting for them to get you on, get you off, put you on. I went through that process like 5 times in my prison stay. Yeah. So they smashed me off the yard. I was there for maybe a few months, and I ended up with like 4 crushed ribs, a crushed orbital socket. I had to pull myself. Luckily, I had a cellie in the hole. I was in there for about 3 months. Mr. Oliver wrote me a letter. Apparently, I think my mom had reached out to him, told him that I was hurt, or made a post or something like that. And, the guys, the mentors, the vandalism, he sent me some money. Of course, you can't buy anything in the hole, but he wrote me letters and sent me a Christmas card. It was really awesome, and I hadn't had any contact with anybody. I'd been basically incarcerated for about a year at this time, and maybe 14 months. And he was the first like real letter, Christmas card. Like, it was like, I held this Christmas card for I still have it, in fact. I got shipped to the next spot. It was Jackson, Mississippi, and I was there for 1 day. I touched down. I spent the night in a cell with this insane and crazy psycho MFer that was like shooting something, and it is like a homemade hypodermic needle, where they basically stole the needle off of like a diabetic needle and took some type of they call it a binky in there. Have you ever heard of one? Do you know what it is? So we all know what a binky is, right? So
Yeah.
it's like a thing, like it's a little mini syringe. So they'll take like any drug, whether it's fentanyl or Suboxone or something like that, and liquefy it and draw it up with the binky and then inject it in their vein. Of course, it's a hit or miss, but
Right.
I watched them do it like 3 times from underneath my covers like this right here, scared to death. This guy's gonna murder me in my sleep.
Right.
Um, and the next so they have the email system in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you get a target or you're labeled or you're, so they said that I was hot, right? Which I wasn't a snitch. I didn't have no defendants on my case. I didn't snitch on anybody, right? But that was the target that they put on me because they didn't want to say, hey, this guy's loud and messy, we didn't give him a shot, we didn't even try, he hasn't even, they could have did that, you know. Anyhow, um so I get to this new place, they put me in a cell with the dirty white boy shot caller. That's what this guy is. I mean, I can't believe I made it out of this whole experience without a face tattoo because everybody in there is like neck up, everything, chins, nose, eyebrows is, I'm, you know, all cool with,
Yeah.
I even considered it, I was like, let me give him a neck piece right here. But anyhow, this guy's looking super gnarly and super dangerous and violent. And I am scared to death. So, the next morning I get up and I figured that the guys, they already knew that I was coming. I'd already been, hey, they know where you're going before you even leave. So I might have left the first place that I was, which is in Kentucky, and went to the transfer center. And before I make it to where I'm going through this email system and then being connected to the guards like they are, it's all about that whole gang
Yeah.
information exchange. There are people or girls that sit it here and they're like a third party. They'll sit in front of their computer and they'll get a message from Jim going to Johnny over here from this prison to this prison, and she'll be that third party exchange system and help them communicate, as a middleman,
Mm-hmm.
and even allow them to. There are even services out there where convicts get out and have a message forwarding system where you can literally send an email and send it to a phone number. It'll translate it to a text and send a text message to somebody. It takes like 2 or 3 hours to go through, but you're still sending a text message. It's like having a phone and
Right.
texting someone. So they call it networking. So basically, I was networked, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that I was, because I wasn't gonna stick around to find out. So I immediately checked in, and that's what they call it in there. They call it checking in. Guys will go in there, run up big dope bills, front get a bunch of stuff fronted to them, and then check in with it. I mean, say they fear for their life and go into protective custody, and then refuse to program, stay in the hole, and then get shipped to a new place. And they'll do their whole bid like that.
Okay.
Touch down in a new place, and before their jacket catches up to with them, they'll do it again. And they call them check-ins.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, of course, I was just trying to stay alive at this point. I didn't care what anybody thought. And I heard an announcement, new arrivals to laundry. So I was like, boom, out the door. I went straight to the laundry. The first guard that I saw, I said, hey man, I'm pretty sure I got networked and these guys are going to probably kill me today because of some bullshit. I'm in fear for my life. I'm really sorry you have to do this today, bud, but I need to go to the hole. So he took me to the hole, and I was in there for Jackson, Mississippi. Terrible place. It was insane. Like everybody fishing underneath the doors. It looked like a spider web in the hallway. The guards don't even care. They step over it, like take, big, goose steps over all these lines. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like a whole like track system. The guys have small carts that they slide underneath the door to be able to trade, stamps, food, drugs, whatever, communicate. They'll call out hits from in the hole, anything. You think that stuff doesn't go on, when someone's just locked in a room
Yeah.
for years, but they're like in there calling shots.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that's the guys who are in there too. Is like, yeah, what are you in here for, man? Everybody's hollering out the doors of the bean holes, and I get a couple more letters from Mr. Oliver while I was in there. It was really great. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, wow, am I going to have to do my next 7 years in the hole? And they end up making me get a cellie. I was riding pretty good for a couple months without a cellie, and they put this psycho dude in there, right? And he's all, you know, like yelling and screaming all the time and constantly like losing his temper for no reason. Like it's like, man, crap food comes to the hole every day, man. Keep it together.
Yeah.
There's bad in there too because they give you like milks it's you look forward to the milk because it's got some kind of vitamins in it. Rest of the time it's just potatoes or like chicken, shredded raw chicken, not raw, but no season, just shredded
Plain,
chicken
yeah.
and potatoes. That's it. No seasoning, no salt and pepper. Just about every day. Biscuits and gravy on Wednesdays, you know, stuff like that. Um, but an apple or just a milk that isn't spoiled, big deal in there. Months and months we're in there doing this. And I think I was in there for maybe 6 months or so. I get put in by psychology. He has been talking to psychology about this program called the Reintegration Housing Unit. And there's only one of them in the entire federal system, and they only let like 40 people into it every so many months. And I was like, can you please put me in for this? Because my points are like 2 points over max. And if I could figure out a way to point down, so every year they reclass you, and it's possible your points could go down, or they could give you something called a management variable, which is basically like your point is still here, but they class you as a medium. And if you get an infraction, it can go back to a 27. You know, there's all these little classification things that they have in there. So I put in for it. I get it, right? My mom and dad and have been like writing who is it, Blackburn, the senator or congressman, you know, trying to, you know, get me to some type of drop yard. They've got 3 drop yards in the system where they, um, if they're for gang dropouts. If you drop out of a gang, it's basically like saying you're telling on your gang. I'm in fear for my life. I'm telling on this gang. Dropouts are just as worse as, you know, like it's being hot
Yeah.
or a child molester. So they have yards for child molesters. They have yards for gang dropouts. And there's 3 of those. I'm like, man, at least they could maybe get me to a dropout yard. You know, I could walk there. I could do my time. I could program. I could work out. I could, you know, just at least get it over with, you
Yeah.
know, instead of being in the hole. Like, you know, the hole was tough. You had to figure it out, you know, or you're in there. You're basically in a bathroom trapped with another man. You don't even get out for a shower. There's a shower in there. You're not getting out. I make it to the program. It's in Florida. It's the biggest FCC in the country. It's got like 8 prisons at it. Its own electrical substation, water treatment facility. I was a rock star at this place. The counselor just let me run. I did like a 40-foot by 150-foot mural. I muralized every single room in this place. It was just one unit inside of a huge USP, like I started out in, and everybody else in this USP basically hated and wanted to kill anyone in this unit, right? Because everybody in this unit had either, you know, there were some real, you know, really bad people in there, like that had really done some reason to be in this place. So it was tough there. You just had to keep your blinders on.
Right.
You know, they took the unit and made like put all the facilities in there. There was a library in there. There was a education place in there. There was a barber shop in there. There was even like a photo booth in there. We didn't get no visits, but once a year they did something special and they allowed us to have a visit. And the only visit that I had for the entire prison stay, my grandparents happened to be in Florida near this place, and they came to see me like around Christmas in 2017. And it was really great. I got to have a contact visit. We watched a movie. It was really special.
Yeah.
It was great. And I made it through the program, and I did so much in there. I had like a little show. Like it was really, really cool. And we when I made it through the program, I made medium security. I got shipped to Kentucky, and I was looking for my shot caller or who's looking for my paperwork for like 2 weeks. I went to the yard. I'm like, hey man, here's the deal. You know, I didn't tell on nobody. Blah blah blah. I'm like, look, man, we don't give a fuck. You know. And I was like, no, for real. Where's it? You know, let me talk to whoever I need to talk to. I know it's a test or whatever. And they're like, for real, we don't care. Nobody here cares. Do your time. Bye. And I'm like, it took me a month or so to get used to that. But once I did, I got a job at a sewing factory. I worked for a few months just so I could figure out how to send some money back home to Isaac's grandmother so that she could go buy a phone to give to him so I could talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
my son.
And how far in was this into your prison stay?
This was 2.5 years,
Okay.
about 2 years and 3 months.
Okay.
I finally make it to medium
Got it.
security and went through
Okay.
these programs. And I stayed there for about 2 years. I got really good at tattooing. I was top choice on the yard for any artist. I tattooed on BG, the Cash Money guy. I tattooed on several people that, like high profile, people that were in there. I was really proud of it. I did a lot of movie covers, bookcases, album covers, any idea. I would go and meet with guys and sit down with them, have an interview with them, when were you born? What do you like? Like I could get a feel where, guys in there in the feds, nobody's, from home.
Right.
You got guys from Chicago, guys from Florida, guys from Tampa. But that's when you get there, you look for guys that are from, like for me, I look for guys that are from Middle Tennessee, and those are your home boys. That's where that's where the word even comes from. It's from federal prison. It's because you look for your homeboys when you're in there. It's a serious word in there too. Anyways, I did great. Everything was going good in there. And I was like, look, I got about 2 years left. I want to program this out. The reintegration housing unit, is where I found this. It's where I changed. It's where my transformation started. And I, had read these, like the Stephen Covey 7 Habits book, and it led me to like the Robert Greene books, Mastery, and they led me down. We did a program in there. They named it the Genesis program, but it was basically the 7 Habits course that they offer, like in the colleges. And we did it and lived it and, walked it, ate it, slept it every day and held each other accountable and, lived like that for like 8 months every day, everything that we did. And it gave me an outlook where, I'm building a plan and I want a new life when I get out. But to me, what's your end game? So I kept thinking about my end game. Of course I want the money, and I'm like, what do you do with the money? Everybody says you can't do it for the money. Everybody in there, believe it or not, says you cannot do it for the money. You cannot do anything good just for the money. There has to be,
Purpose.
purpose and principle for your end all be all. Because when there ain't no money or the money's bad or the money's all good, then what? So I would picture myself with everything, sitting in the place where I had everything that the money was going to get. And I was just chilling by myself. And I was like, yeah, that's not it. There's something missing. It's people, it's changing lives, leaving something better than you found it. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's the philosophy that I adopted. And I was like, I want to help people. I want to change people. I want to inspire people. I want to change people's life. I want to be a servant, because that's the only way that you'll ever be full. You'll always be looking for this hole to fill and, trying to fill up an unfillable cup, and that's what I've been trying to do my whole life.
Right.
Is try to fill up this unfillable cup. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was almost sad because I wanted the money, but it was warm, it was perfect. And I knew that, living a principle centered, unselfish service stance was going to serve me more than anything else could.
Yeah.
So I drew the Due South Design Center, this place, which that's where I'm working on currently, but that's where its inception was. And I drew this 3-dimensional space that had basically like anything that you would see like a contracting firm, and it has interns and people connected to it that come out of prison and want to learn a skilled trade or get their life together and have a real future, and also earn a competitive wage while they do that. It's hard to go to school. You come out of prison and you want to say, oh, well, I'm going to go to truck driving school or electrical school or this school or that school. Even in prison, there's no schools. They say you go to HVA school, or you can do this or that, but they say that they exist, but they don't. What happens is like in this system, there's one prison who has that, and you just got to figure out a way to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not at every prison.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a sewing factory. I worked in a sewing factory for a few months. Anyhow, uh, the I developed this program. This is where I want to be. How am I going to get there? Okay, well, I'm pretty sure I'll have to put in my dues and work and do my, put in my hours. I'm skilled, so I believe that I would be able to get there, as a contractor, doing what I do best. So that would be, that time. Well, how am I going to get there? Well, I have to get a job. I have to get a birth certificate. So I kind of reverse engineered that time period down to the moment I get out of prison. And so what do I do in between there? Well, I work on the way that I talk. I work on the way that I communicate and experiment with my interactions and with human beings and having discipline, living in close spaces with very tough situations. You know what I mean? And getting along, learn how to have that discipline and restraint, and learning and understanding people and having compassion for them, listening, looking to be uh, seeking to understand instead of to be understood. You know what I mean?
I think too, in a way, it sounds like you had to force yourself to get through the uncomfortable. And that kind of goes back to, I feel like, before prison, because it seems like the comfortable was the restarting constantly. And as soon as you would get comfortable, that was uncomfortable to you. So it was almost like a restart again.
Yeah.
So it was like getting used to that.
Yeah. Exactly. It's funny you said that, because I call them disposable relationships, because they just weren't real, drugs and using everybody, just kind of sucking off of each other. Those aren't real friendships or relationships, because if they were, they'd still be around.
Absolutely, yeah.
It washed away every disposable relationship, and it forged real ones with real mentors and real solid positive people that were a benefit and a source of support and encouragement and inspiration to me. Mr. Oliver, I had another friend of mine that was just a couple years older than me. He went on to the Army. He was in this big friend group I had in my partying days, and he's got 60 guys under his command. He's a Patriot missile operator, and he's all about the principle and the discipline. And he wrote me. He sent me pictures from places he was stationed, like Dubai and this place and that place, and a real true, a man's man, a stand-up guy who's going to shoot you straight and tell you the business, whether you want to eat or not. And I respected his word and his counsel while I was in there. And I had another friend of mine that is a family man that I feel like I had this perfect, well-rounded little mastermind group to build my my core, and I used it. I have another friend that graduated the same year I did. He went on to build a successful dental practice. And this guy wrote me, took the time. He's got a busy life, wife, kids, graduating, and 2 practices, and wrote me and ministered to me and prayed for me and sent me money. And even to this day, he's looked out for me. He's sent me customers and contracts, and whether it's accent walls or kitchens or built-ins or shelves, they're still out there, like cheering me on, got my back. He's even helped me out of a couple jams, and I forget, there was one more. I have a couple of them. I know I'll remember in a minute, but I had this great mentor group that's still there. It's perfect. And Mr. Oliver was great. He's been in all these great situations, wore all these hats, and he's taught me how much a person could actually do when they want to. He like delivers Meals on Wheels, goes to Tai Chi on Thursdays, county commissioner, head of like the beautification committee, and I'm sure there's like 5 or 6 more. And he's got his own little personal projects, and then does all these other things. Like, look at all the stuff that a person is, like a great example, right?
Yeah.
And so to go back to my timeline, I end up putting in for the RDAP program. I know I'm not going to get the year off my sentence like everybody else does because I'm classified violent, but I do it anyways. The place that they shipped me to is Marion, Illinois. It's the place that they replaced Alcatraz with in the 80s. And it is probably like, I prayed for a hydrogen bomb to drop on that place while I was in it several times because the people that are in there are like all Dateline To Catch a Predator superstars. 75% of the population in there, except for the program unit, where they ship people all over the country and put them in this program unit. The rest of the population is some kind of, I mean, once I completed this program and, bounced the quarter off the bed and ironed my clothes and said the affirmations and lived the life and walked the walk, psychology based criminal thinking errors, the whole nine for 13 months. And then I put in my transfer to go back to my parent institution and they wouldn't give it to me. So I crashed out. I got in some little weak fight and went to the hole and I was like, put me in for a 325. I knew the system at this point. I'm a pro, right? Like put me in for a 325 transfer back to my parent institution. It's in rule book number, blah, blah, blah. Right here. It was like, okay, sure, Jones, we got you. 30 days later, or I'm sorry, 3 months later, your transfer didn't go through, Jones. You have to put it in again. We'll see you in 45 days. So I did this for another 13 months. By this time, I've got like about 9 months left. If I get 10 months of halfway house time, I'll get out of prison in about 9 months. Something to this effect. I know I'm a few months off on either way, one way or the other here, but it's besides the point. Anyhow, I was in the hole for about a year and doing this game. And finally, I just gave up. I mean, I even got a job down there. I was in there long enough that I had outlived anyone that came in or went out of the hole. There's guys who are, yeah, I've been in here 3 months. Yeah, I've been in here 4 months. Anyway, Jones, how long have you been in here? I've been here 9 months. And they gave me a job. I finally was like, you know what? I'm going back to the yard. I'm not going to spend my last several months locked in here like this. So I went back and the white community had ostracized me. And I had a friend of mine that I walked with and hung out with, and he was a vice lord shot caller, and he let me be his cellie. He's my friend, still my friend. And COVID hit. We all got locked down. And it was like that for about the last 6 months or so. We quarantined, we got out, and I made it to the halfway house in Nashville, Tennessee. So the rules with feds is like, I know you probably may have heard or know about halfway houses a little bit. It's usually like some guy who's been approved and has a house and he basically fosters felons, from the system. He gets a check, a subsidy or whatever from the state, and they house so many. So if he gets, X amount of dollars, it means he's got to have 10, foster felons in there with him, right? Well, in the feds, it's federally maintained and federally governed, it's way more official. It's more like a facility. It's like prison. There's count time, there's lockdown time, there's lights out, there's dinner time, there's curfew time, there's shots and infractions and do's and don'ts. And it's just like a big open dorm with bunks in it.
Yeah.
And there's usually a private company who will manage that on an official basis through the Fed. And they get money too, and it's like, it's basically the same situation as like a foster parent, right? So you have foster parents who get kids coming into their house and they get a check from the state. They don't give a shit about the kids and they just use the money and, the kids can be, or, in a bad situation, in a manipulated situation. And these halfway house situations, they're like that too. And the first thing that they want you to do is go get a job. They want you to go work because they get subsidies. They get 25% of your check. I was like, wait a minute, no matter what you make. So if you go make $2,000 this week, they're going to take $500 of your check. Yes, they are. So guys are in there coming out trying to do good. And half the time they'll just go get some, BS crackerjack job at like, Goodwill or, somewhere so that, they'll just ride it out.
Hmm.
These systems and educational systems and resources that are supposed to be in place are not there,
Right.
because everyone that's been entrusted with, this responsibility to service is not doing it. They're
Hmm.
manipulating it, right? And that's what pisses me off. That's where I'm at. That's where I want to take, what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I've done, from getting out at the peak of COVID in 2021 with nothing. Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would touch me with a 10-foot pole. I couldn't even get my dad to loan me $100 for a tool belt. And I scratched it up. I worked for someone, rode with someone, got a truck, got the tools. A few months later, quit, started my own business. And even in the halfway house, you can't have a business. You can't even have a vehicle. Now, halfway through my halfway house stay, they changed the you can't have a vehicle titled to you rule and allowed people to actually get vehicles titled to them. But me personally, I had to get my first vehicle titled to someone else.
Yeah.
It was and she was great. She helped me a lot. She was a friend, and we were supposed to kind of start a thing together when we got out, but it didn't pan out. For one reason or another, we didn't make it through that plan. And so I'm stuck here with a truck in my name. I even was going to start the business and have her as the COO of the business, and me basically just wear all the hats and be an employee in my own company,
Hmm.
And so for a year, I fought for my name back so I'm fighting through all these obstacles and COVID and having someone answer the phone for me every day. So at a real job, they call, hey, is Matt at work today? 8 o'clock in the morning. Hey, is Matt at work today? 11 o'clock in the morning. Hey, is Matt at work today? 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll call your employer like that and ask, yep, yes, he is. Yep, yes, he is. Yep, yes, he is. Right. So for me to be able to run a business, I had to have somebody, do that for me, and I had called my guys, my mentor guys, and my dentist buddy, and he, turned me on to a really good guy. He's like, man, if this guy knows how to get something done, he can. He's, spent some time in there. He's, got his shit together. He owns several companies. They know him in there. He's credible. So, if anybody can get you together, Chris Rowland can get you together. And for, like, shoot, man, probably until I was off of, they call it home confinement. So what you'll do is your halfway house time is this much, but once you do so much, they will allow you to actually go to your own home if you have one.
Okay.
But you still have to call them every move you make. So if I'm out here working, doing a job, and I leave here and go to lunch, I got to call them and say, hey, I'm going to lunch. I'm going to McDonald's, leaving work. When I get to McDonald's, I say, hey, I'm at McDonald's. I'm getting lunch. When I leave McDonald's, I got to call them and say, hey, I'm leaving McDonald's. When I get to my work, I got to call them back again. So it's like 20 calls a day.
Yeah.
So when I get home, I got to tell them when I'm leaving home, I got to call and ask for a request, like a shopping move. Hey, I need to go to Walmart on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Can I get an approval to go to Walmart? That's what home confinement is. And you just got to honor the process. You've got an ankle monitor on.
Yeah.
So it was super tough. So I'm getting up and going to work every day, and I'm moving around a lot. And they're like, I said, well, it's part of it. Finally,
Right.
they just stopped, having my calls. Is like, I know he's working, and I had some friends, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had even, one of the administrator assistant was looking out for me. I'm actually so, I'm thinking that, this all was just like luck, but this guy was like, there ain't no way this dude is not at work. You know what I mean? And he could have busted me at any minute, knowing what I was doing, you know? And then this other gentleman, has answered the phone every single day for like 6 months saying, yep, he's at work. Yep, he's at work. Yep, he's at work. I could have been out there making a mess, I
Hmm.
could have been out there jerking off and doing something stupid, but they went to bat for me,
Right.
and without them, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. I was trying to take all the credit, when I started this conversation and say I did it all and I couldn't borrow any money, but it's been one miracle after another, and I believe it's because, I haven't been doing it for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
I don't think that, I don't know if it was the family or the trying to hold it together or what it was, but I mean, it's going on uh, over 3 years that I've been released, and I haven't crashed and burned yet. And it's usually like a 12-month tour.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
I think too, something that I was thinking about as you were telling your story is not everybody is going to have the perfect upbringing or have the perfect outcome. Sometimes you're going to have to go through shit, sometimes way more intense and serious than others. But that shouldn't, I mean, I know this is like such a statement that everybody says, but that really should not define a person. And like we were saying before we started filming, if someone's going to judge you and define you for what you've done or what you've been through, especially when you've come out stronger and higher than what you were or what you've done, then they can go fuck themselves. And that's just my mindset. And that's the truth because, like, you could have somebody that is, might not have done the same things or half as worse, as someone else has. But I feel like they might not be as hardworking. They might not have the experience that you have or that somebody else has. And I just feel like we live in such a judgmental world. And what does judgment really do? You know what I mean? It does
Yeah.
nothing but creates these walls and wedges between people. And I feel like someone like you should be, what's the word? Like you should get credit, in my opinion, for where you are and what you've been through and how hard you've worked to be where you are now. Because if you're not, then we're just like minimizing the support that we should be providing to other people where it's deserved.
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, I feel like if nothing else, that everybody goes through shit, and if it could be anything, it, I would hope that it would inspire someone
Right.
to, push through whatever kind of label or bullshit that they were going through and figure it out. I did this, like, I can't even count how many times I just told you that I started over, and I think I even left a lot of stuff out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm not trying to say, hey, look at me, I made it. But what I want to do is inspire some people to come over here with me.
Kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, and sorry to interrupt you, but obviously your story is here to inspire people. I feel like not only is it to inspire, but it's to show your journey. And I think that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability to open up and say, this is what I've done. And it's pretty shitty. And I've gone through some pretty shitty things, but here's my experience. Hopefully it can. The thing is, too, is whether it's somebody that is in a rough place right now and it inspires them not to continue down that path, or it's somebody that has already gone down that path and now they're trying to, work themselves up and be a better person. It can inspire them, well, if he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? So it makes them feel like there's more people like them in their corner, because I think one of the hardest things to do is to come out of something and come above something when you feel like you're all alone
Right.
or like you're the only one.
Yeah. Or there's a big red sign that says felon, or a
Right.
big red sign that says drug addict, or
It's easy to let that define you, especially
it
when
is.
so many people are just going along with it, because it makes you feel like, well, why am I even trying if everybody thinks this way
Exactly.
anyway?
And you're even just, they say there's like the support systems, and I mean, just for me, like, I did great, and I met when I met Brittany earlier this year. I was at a brewery and they were great, and I don't really remember what hit it off, but I was looking for like some social media presence, right? She's like, oh, her mom was going on and on. She does this and this and this. So I met her and we started like really getting together on some creative ideas. I had all this content and all this great work that I had did, and I felt compelled to tell her my story. I didn't want to, and I was scared to, and I've always been scared to tell her my story. So when I told her this, that's when, our that's when this mission for me started. That's when it became real. That's when the do it scared thing became real for me. And she inspired me to tell it, to tell it like it is. And for the last couple of years, I've been hiding it, trying to portray, a picture perfect contractor, professional, trustworthy, businessman that, are going to be at your luxury home or residence or business, taking care of some fine work. And I'm still that no matter what.
Right.
But I'm scared to death somebody's going to, do a background check on me. And some of them have, I haven't known that. And I hadn't found out about that until after I kind of came out with this stuff. And I found out, wow, they knew about that. And they still, went to bat for me.
Yeah.
They still, deposited, sent me a $30,000 transfer and, did business with me. And, that's why we called it Do It Scared, because everybody in my support system or anyone has said, I was like, look, I'm going to wait until I'm secure, until I am set up and I'm, bulletproof. And like, no, you got to do it now. You got to do it. You got to do it scared. And when somebody said that, I was like, man, it's a perfect, because, and that's what I would tell everybody else too, is to push through that and to just do it. Because if you wait, you're just going to let all those little voices, pile up inside of you. I mean, maybe you won't. Maybe you're not that person. You know what I mean? Or whoever. Not everyone is the same. But I think, once you hear something or experience something so much that eventually you're gonna everybody has a breaking point.
Absolutely.
And I would. That's where I'm trying to take this, is to be able to inspire people to push through it and to do something. It's not too late. I am 45 years old. And I just restarted my life like 3 years ago, and it's going great.
Yeah. And, this might be kind of a silly analogy, but it just made me think of it. But when you were saying that you would want to hide your story and hide your experience because of the fear of like what people would think or if it would make things worse. But something that I've realized, even with just struggling with something as simple as like small anxiety in certain situations, in those moments or going into things, we want to hide these things about ourselves that we're ashamed of or that we're not proud of or that we think looks bad in a way. But 9 times out of 10, something I've realized, and it's very different obviously, but it's just an analogy I thought of, but 9 times out of 10 I've realized that when I hide these things about myself, it makes it so much more challenging to do big things and do better things. But I almost feel like if we're just upfront and honest from the start, even about things that we might not be proud of,
right.
I think it feels a lot better if we go into something with complete openness and complete honesty, because then everybody's on the same page, because we don't have that unexpected fear of, well, what if this comes up? Or what if I get this job and then they do a background check, or then they find something out about me, or somebody tells them this, that, and the other, and then I lose the job. You don't have any of that, because even if they choose not to even if they choose not to go with you from the jump, at least you know that from the beginning, there's no worry, there's no fear.
Right.
So it just made me think of that even if it's something, of course, doing and having experienced what you experienced, that's not something that right off the bat you're going to come out of it and be proud of it. If you were, you wouldn't be where you are now.
Right.
But I feel like if you get to this point in your life and within yourself where you really see it how it is, and what it is your journey, and it's inspirational, and you have every single right to share that. And as you walk through the rest of your life, if you're able to share that in a very open and honest and raw way, in my opinion, smart, level-headed people are going to respect that more than someone that just says, like, rather not tell you and not be honest and cover it up because of shame or guilt. People rather you just be honest.
That's the feedback that I've had. I've been astounded.
It's hard, but like that's what nobody wants to say. That's like going into something and laying out the worst parts or about your life. Nobody wants to do that. No. But I think that the more you start to give yourself credit, which like I said too, it's one of the hardest things to do is give yourself credit where it's deserved.
Yeah.
But the more you can do that and the more you can own your story and own your journey, I think the more you're going to get used to saying, yeah, that's who I was and that's what I went through, but that's also why I am the person I am today.
Yeah.
And that's more, in my opinion, that's always going to be more inspiring than somebody that one just handed it to them, or okay, lucky you had a great life. You know what I'm like, to other people. It's like, it's great if some people have a great upbringing and then they make money for themselves and they do this and then they do that and that's and the other, and that's great. But that's not always relatable. And I think that, in my opinion, it's very relatable when you have these struggles and when you can confidently talk about them and show where you are today and be proud of it. Be proud of who you are and where you, like, how far you've come, because it has not been a short and easy journey for you.
I am. It's been hard to be proud.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, the support that I've had from Brittany and her family has been like, it's been an eye opener for me. Now I've heard it from, my guy friends, my mentors, but, in my opinion, guys are always gonna, try to talk you up.
Yeah.
Not that, women wouldn't. I'm just saying that the male mentor supportive roles in my life have said, hey man, you're going to crush it, whatever. But seeing the support that they showed me, like, helped me come out of my shell and take the thing that I was hiding and literally, like, put it on stage.
And it's all still pretty fresh. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's been 20 years or something where, it's very fresh. It's very recent. So I feel like everything that you're feeling is still very normal. It's still very raw. And it's something that I feel like mentally it's hard to get that full grasp on and have that confidence in the sense of, like, owning your journey and owning where you are now. Like I said, having that fear of the unknown and having the fear of judgment is so normal, because that is what the world is. The world is full of judgment. Yeah. And I think something that we fear is when we are finally in a really stable, good place for ourselves, we don't want to get denied of anything. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to ever feel like we're getting knocked down. And it's, that feeling all too well of, like, getting knocked down and feel like you have to start over. So obviously that's the last thing you want to feel. But I feel like after hearing your story and the fact that you've traveled out here to come on here and tell your story on a platform to, one, somebody that you don't know, that being me, and then two, to a whole audience that it can reach and it will reach, that says so much about you. And I feel like this is only the beginning for you with that. Like, I feel like that could just be something that you build on even years down the road. Like, you could be speaking, just like, I mean, you said you already do that in a sense, but you could continue to speak to, even if it's something like high schoolers or college kids, because that is such a crucial age for people. I feel like that's kind of the place in life where people choose what path they're going down. And there's so many people that just go down the wrong path, whether that's because they were dealt just some bad cards, or if it's because of the people they're surrounding themselves with. But I think that there's nothing more inspiring than somebody that actually has the experience and the years on them to be like, let me tell you, I've done it all and it's not fucking worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as amazing as it is where you are now and what you've built already, I feel like there's so much more to come that you don't even realize. Like, and you might feel like, oh, like, majority of my life or half my life has already passed me, but things can happen and snowball really, really quickly.
I agree. I'm open to it. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for saying that.
Of course.
Yeah. I can already see that. I mean, just in the last several months, I've had just this big 180 in my life. So, it's been, I mean, we're living it real time right now.
Right. So. Yeah. And this is kind of like your test run of sharing your story. I feel like in a very outlined order and kind of putting it all on paper and then reciting it all and revisiting it. And even that's not something easy to do, because we can, at the end of the day, these are our own stories, but it isn't the easiest thing to kind of, where you are now, sit back and revisit kind of some of the darkest times of your life. It can be triggering and it can be
definitely
make you feel guilty or ashamed or so many different mix of emotions. But I feel like this, like I said, this is a really good practice for you of like, okay, here's what has happened. Here's me going back through it and kind of accepting where I am today and being like just taking it all in.
Yeah.
I think that's really important for you.
I'm with you.
Good. And you did such a great job of telling it all, the details. You're such an interesting speaker and a person to listen to. It's very, like I said, not only is it inspiring, but it's also entertaining in the best way.
Well, thanks for saying that.
Of course.
I mean, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like
I'll keep boosting you up over here.
Okay, keep going. Keep going. That's perfect.
Oh my gosh.
That's all I've ever needed is a cheerleader.
Yes. No, it really is. And like I said, I mean, I can't express it enough. And I feel like, you know, what you're doing now is incredible. And obviously I feel like it's something that you've always had in you because you always have been a hard worker. I think that you kind of just needed a very big pivot in life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was a long pivot and it was a pretty rock bottom pivot, but it's okay because sometimes people need that. And I feel like some of our biggest and hardest lessons are the ones that really change us and make us who we are. And now that you're the best version of yourself.
Definitely. I agree. I always say it was like, it was really tough to go through that, but anybody that's addicted to drugs or you know, or just let's say on a basic level, I mean, I'd say wouldn't take any. You say, oh, you're good after a month, right? I would say a year before your brain actually really starts to function normally, and at least when drugs are involved or there's some type of substance abuse or even probably mental abuse or any kind of abuse or trauma. It takes a year. I mean, I'm talking about being locked up. I'm talking about being removed from, you know, that's just an opinion of mine.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough to sit in there and lose family members and watch people, you know, leave and come and go. But I don't think that I would have been able to make it without it. For sure.
Right.
I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without that time. And it's sad to say, but I was deep off in it.
Yeah. And it's so cool too, because no matter where life takes you, you have so many talents. Like not only do you have what you're doing now, but you're artistic. You can tattoo.
Right.
Like you have so many different things going for you. I feel like even one day, if you really wanted, you could write a book if you felt like it, if you felt like sitting down and doing that. Like, I just feel like the opportunities going forward for you are genuinely endless. Like they are. And you said something before, which was you have to want it. And that is so true. Like you are not going to get where you want to get no matter what it is. Even if you change your mind a million times, you're not going to get there unless you truly want it and you work for it.
That's right.
And now it's almost like your journey. I say this to some people on this show because it is true, but your journey I think is truly starting now for you. Or like ever since you've gotten out of prison and kind of gotten your life back together. Like this is where your journey starts.
Yeah.
And everything before this was just kind of leading up to it. You know what I mean? And for you specifically and for your life and your journey, that needed to happen. And it should never be something that you look back and you say, oh, like I could have done this or I should have done that. Fuck it. It happened. It's done.
Right.
And like, you don't have to forget it, but you accept it. You accept it for who you were and what it was. And now you're this person. And you're all these things. Like, and that's the thing. You're so many things. Like you're a father, you're a friend, you're going to be a inspiration and a support system for other people down the road. And like, imagine that. Like you probably never would have thought the day would come where you would be an inspiration to someone. And that's the thing. Like today, sitting here and sharing your story, you are. And that's huge. That's a huge milestone. And it's one that it might not be right in front of your face and visible, but I can tell you from doing this show and reading through their comments and getting emails on end and people thanking me for having these guests on, you will inspire at least one person.
Great. That's the goal.
And you will, yes. And I wanted to tell you too, before I forget, if you have any links or anything that you want in the description, whether it's your business or whatever it might be, we can put it all in there too, so people can check all that stuff out.
Thank you.
Of course.
That's great. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
of course.
That's a big deal. Thank you.
Yeah, of
All right.
course.
I even forgot the part. I mean, this is really sad. It sucks, and I hate to be talking about it like it's something I forgot, but I forgot about Jamie being murdered. You know, my son's mom.
Mm.
About 9 months before I got out of prison, she was like shot to death like 40 times.
Oh.
Crazy.
Was it by someone random?
She was used as a kind of, it was some type of drug deal gone
Okay.
bad and used as a human shield. And like the hotel room got shot up with like 3 weapons.
Oh, it's
And
horrible.
yeah, she was murdered. So it was, and I like get a call from the counselor when I was in prison, and I'm like, this is weird because that never happens. He like hands me the phone, and I'm like, and it's my dad, and he's like, have you talked to anybody? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, has anybody in the family talked to you? And at that point, I was like, there's an emergency. Something's happened. And he was like, well, Jamie's dead. I don't know how. Apparently, she was murdered. So then, you know, getting back, that's affected the whole dynamic with the boys. And, you know, originally all I wanted was for them to come back home and for us to, I know they're older. They're 21 and 25. And I wanted that. You know, that was one of my main motivations for this.
Right.
You know, I would have made that happen, but who would ever thought that they were, you know, had minds of their own and opinions and feelings and trauma of their own, and they do, you know, and it isn't, you know, you can sit in there and plan and strategize and imagine things all you want, but when you get out and it's real life, you know, it's different. You know, it just and it keeps going too. So that's one thing that I've had to like deal with and keep on going. So
And being a parent, and I'm not a parent yet except for to my animals, but being a parent, from even just having so many people in here and learning about people's traumas and how sensitive the young brain is. Being a parent isn't easy. It's like, unless you're completely sheltering your children from the world, it's nearly impossible not to create some sort of trauma.
right.
And even that will cause trauma by sheltering the children. So it's like, it's a lose-lose. But
they could have a slamming door
exactly
phobia or something.
Exactly.
You know?
But something that, at least speaking from right now, you know, even though that's, you know, your relationship with your boys is something that all you can do is put in the effort now and work hard now to create that relationship. As time goes on, they're only going to be more happy and grateful and thankful of where you are today, because the other alternative is staying where you were before.
Right.
And you know what that leads to. So it's just, there would be no relationship or bonding that could be created.
Right.
So we do what we can.
That's right. And consistency shows a lot.
Yes.
You know, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, I used to let things like that beat me up. You know, I used to let things like that destroy me. Oh, my sons don't want to live with, oh, my son said I hate, oh, he doesn't want to be, oh, well, what's the point? You know, might as well, you know, be done with this or relapse or just say, forget it. And now it's, you know, it's not something that destroyed me or crushed me or anything like that. And I know I'm talking about like big boy grown up stuff, but to me, it's always been a trigger. It's always, you know, these things have always been a reason to fall,
right.
You know, and I've had to say no to them. I've had to push away people that I've wanted to really bring in close just because they may be dangerous or bad or bad for business, bad for my freedom, you know, or a threat or not responsible or whatever. So
yeah. And I think the further you get on your journey and where you are, I think the more easy and familiar it will get for you to kind of be able to read people and be like, yeah, you're good. No, you're not. And just, it kind of becomes an easy just in, out, like, you know, back and forth. But it, like I said, it's all still pretty fresh. So you're going to have to cut yourself some slack and realize there's going to be days that it might feel like, fuck, this is challenging. It's hard because life can be hard and it can throw some serious obstacles at you. But the longer you do it and the more consistent you are, it will only get better. And it might not seem like it some days, but it will. Like it just will. And you, like I said, you genuinely, I mean, sorry to say it, but there's some people that really just don't have much going for them. They don't have many skills, but you've got a lot of skills. You've got a lot going for you.
Thank
So even if one thing doesn't go as planned, pick up another thing that you're good at. Never stop. There's no reason to.
Thank you.
You've already done the other path long enough.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Word.
Crushed it. Seriously, you did
So is
amazing.
it arable?
Yes, it's arable.